Oh, Billy. Ah!
Alrighty. So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the roasting of Billy Mitchell. I am your host, Pirate Canvas, and I am joined here with my good friend, J-Man, the Dual Blade.
Hey there, everyone. How's it going?
So, I got J-Man here. He's going to join me, and we are going to talk about this whole Billy Mitchell situation here. Gosh. It's been over a year now already? Jesus, fuck. And this guy is now apparently trying to sue the people that caught him in the act of, cheating. Which, for those of you who don't know, Billy Mitchell, he is known as the person that did the highest score in Pac-Man and Donkey Kong. I think he reached 3 million, which I guess was like the perfect score in Pac-Man. I think he was the first one to do that. And I believe he also reached a high score in Donkey Kong, the original arcade version of Donkey Kong. Well, last year, it turns out he got caught cheating. There is video footage out there of him using a MAME emulator instead of an actual arcade cabinet. So what ended up happening was Twin Galaxies, the company that keeps record of high scores in arcade, they basically they they got rid of Billy's high score, as well as they banned him from Twin Galaxies. Period. And Guinness World Records also took him out of the record book of having the highest score in Pac-Man and in Donkey Kong. And now Billy Mitchell is wanting to go after them legally. So, what do you think of this, J-Man?
I think he's being a total bitch.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, dude, you got caught cheating. There's no way around it. Uh, there's nothing you can say to justify anything. You cheated, and you should have been the smarter person here by admitting that you cheated and apologized, like every other normal human being does. But no, Billy is a special case. He's he's the guy that has to have the attention. He's the egotistical, maniacal, manipulative, conniving son of a bitch. He really is. And it's been documented. And there's been documentaries made about him being a fraud, being a con artist, especially in the documentary they made, uh, the King of Kong documentary that they did on Billy. Turns out that he and the producers of that documentary, they sort of messed with those scores uh, and basically it has something to do with this whole entire controversy, because the footage that he submitted was from that documentary. And the footage he submitted was used in MAME. He used MAME in that footage, and I don't know what that was. What the hell was that? uh, I do apologize if there's any issues. I'm trying my best to make sure the stream turns out good. I don't know what's going on here. I'm hearing Windows go off, but honestly, we're gonna go through some of these documents here, and we're gonna see what evidence he provides. And J-Man is gonna be here to give his opinions on it as well. Uh, but I kind of want to sort of play some clips for you guys, as well as show you some evidence that, he did in fact cheat. And that we're not just saying this. This is not lying or anything, Billy. If you're watching this, we're not lying on you. We're not trying to we're not trying to defame you or anything. We're just telling the truth. That's really it. So
Heck, I didn't even know your name until last year.
and if you try to flag down this video, trust me, I will upload it somewhere else. I got BitChute. Trust me, you will not be able to take it down there. But yeah, Billy has been taking down videos of people criticizing him. People, I think he took down the documentary that Dwayne, uh, that the Dwayne guy did, which we're gonna actually listen to him in this call that was recorded by Apollo Legend. Big shout out to Apollo Legend for covering this. If it wasn't for him, this guy probably would have gotten away with basically cheating. And this has been going on for 30 years, people. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna play the phone call, the phone exchange with Dwayne and Apollo Legend. So yeah,
here's what he said.
The stuff with the Pac-Man, because I know Bill, because he threatened Guinness and he threatened TG. His big thing was about his Pac-Man, his Donkey Kong scores in that letter. But the one thing I noticed in his package there that came out that I was shocked, what he's claiming there, if you looked at that chart with his two scores, he had first perfect Pac-Man and then he had fastest perfect Pac-Man for that 5.5 hour game exactly. That's not what happened. There was no second tape. There is no second tape. How that goes down, it's just unbelievable the way Walter and him manipulate people. They use people, and once they're done with them, they spit them out. They're total psychopaths. Walter and Bill knew about Bill basketball back in 83 or 84. And he was invited to a contest in 1985. They knew about Bill basketball. He sent them letters to try and contact them, and he sent them pictures of his Miss Pac-Man scores. And he had the world record on Miss Pac-Man quite early on in his career, but they never acknowledged it because they just couldn't believe if they couldn't do it, no one else could, or no one else could figure out what they knew. And so he'd sort of been the black sheep for a long time. And what ended up happening was he did actually get the perfect Pac-Man in 1988. They knew about that a long time ago. A lot of the players, Rick Fothergill, all those guys in the 80s knew about that. They just never bothered to do anything about it. When Bill comes up with this crazy idea, I'm going to go for a perfect Pac-Man in 1999, that story was so old. And then, it just no one bothered doing it because it wasn't that hard. No one really cared. I think what happened was Bill and Walter talked to Namco and they worked on promoting this whole idea with it because they just released that Class of 81 deal around that time for the 20th anniversary of the games. And that's where they came up with that idea of the Player of the Century thing. And then they had that whole award ceremony in Japan. That whole thing was a marketing orchestration between Bill, Walter, and Namco. That was planned out. That's why he screwed everybody, because he went behind their back and they negotiate some kind of promotional thing. And that's how that all happened.
Right. There was no contest. There was no other players in the running. It was just it was a media event, right?
It was a media event, yeah. And people it's like me self-declaring myself the smartest man in the world. Well, great. Walter is a practiced liar and manipulator. You just cannot believe how good of a liar and manipulator is unless you really know him. And I've known him for a long time. I got caught up in some of their manipulation. That's where I realized, and there's no way they're ever going to lie to me or fool me or manipulate me in such a way that they use me. You know, people who do that, they're not your friends. The thing about Walter is you have to understand that he has no life. He's part of a cult, the Transcendental Meditating cult there in the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. You go to this town, it's one of the weirdest places you'll ever visit because they're all into this metaphysical stuff, and they think they're superheroes where they can bend the spoon with their mind or whatever. It's in Fairfield, Iowa, and they have a school there, so he can never leave it. And so that's part of the problem. So he stays there and he does his thing. But in order to stay relevant in that town, you have to do something to bring positive light to the cult. So Walter can never leave his role and take that costume off, because if he doesn't constantly draw attention to the religion in the different ways and thinking he's superior because he practices this religion, he falls out of favor within the community, and he sinks like a lead balloon to the bottom of the pecking order. And again, this is one thing that hasn't been told, and I'll say it, and you know, damn the torpedoes. Because Bill had a falling out with his family long time ago to do with video games. I don't really know the story because I wasn't there, but I've lived through the ramifications. He hates his sister. Like, he lost control of Ricky's, the restaurant now. Now he just has the hot sauce, and he alienated himself from his family, like, because they used to tease him about playing the video games because his sisters did really well. Like, they went to university because, you know, he had the chance to do anything he really wanted to, but he chose to do hot sauce and play games for some reason, you know, and you know, and his sisters were older than him, and they used to tease him and stuff like that. And somehow he got angry from him and his family. And it was at the point there, and when I was back in contact with Bill, he got married. He told his family at the last moment, because his wife said, well, don't you think you should invite your family? And she goes, well, they're not going to come. He goes, what do you mean they're not going to come? Well, just invite them. But they already had planned to go on a trip to Europe, and so they went to on this trip on Europe, and they didn't go to Bill's wedding. And then when Bill and his wife were pregnant, he didn't tell anybody. We didn't know. And then we find out it was like he was denying he was married, and he was denying he was a father. Like, this would have been around 2001, 2002, 2003. He didn't tell anybody, and then like 3 or 4 months after the fact, he told his parents that they were grandparents. He didn't even tell them. Like, that's how weird he is, and that's how weird his situation is. And when I went to meet his dad for the first time, he didn't even call him his dad. He told me, well, that was the bartender. Something is wrong there in a way that never really got explained, or I could never figure out. And so Walter became the father figure, I think, in Bill's life. That's why they're so incestuously close like that. Like, it's weird. That's the problem. Him and Walter are caricatures of themselves. They hate themselves and they're bored silly, but they've invested so much in this caricature. They got to wear their costumes, go around with the thumbs up, and Walter can't change his clothes. He's got to wear that same costume because he's scared no one's going to recognize him. That's your life. It's tragic, and they don't even understand it. We're trying to help them. There's people who love you. There's people who forgive you. There's people who care about you. But they don't understand, because they have this weight of this burden of proof that's there, that's crushing them, that they can't hold it for very much longer. It's going to crush them. And I warned them, but they didn't believe me. They thought I was crazy. As you can see, this coming a mile away. It's a train moving in slow motion. I can't look away. I can't stand to watch this train wreck in slow motion. It's killing me. There was no agenda. I was lucky. Like I tell people, that if God didn't give me all this information just the way it happened, I never would have found out. Nobody would have ever found out. Because Robert was throwing all this out. I was just happened to be passing through New York City from Fun Spot. Robert's throwing all these tapes up because he quit. This is after King of Kong, and he quit working for TG because of all the bullshit Walter was pulling. And somehow there was a box of tapes that had my Jealous 2 world record in it, and a couple of my own world records that he had. He asked me if I wanted. I said, oh, sure, I'll come and grab that while I'm there. It was just like a small box, maybe like not even a foot by a foot square. It was just like there was like 8 or 9 tapes in it. And it just so happened there was one tape of the Pac-Man in that, and there was one tape with Chris Ira's Pac-Man tape in there, and that's where it just so happened, that's what was in the mystery box. And then when I got home and I had a chance to look at some of this stuff, I realized that we'd been lied to. He was slow recording it, so he had to change tapes. That's why he has 3 tapes. Because he thought, they got to have a really good quality. Oh, great, good idea. But what happened was, in the middle of a board, he never changed his tape, so he doesn't have one continuous tape of the performance, which makes it illegal. There was no referee there. There were no referees at that because Twin Galaxies was just getting started. I hadn't been involved. My buddy Greg, a lot of the old players weren't involved, so there weren't really any referees like we know them at that time till the modern time. There were no. It was just him and Walter, and they both owned Twin Galaxies. Even with the King of Kong stuff, that whole thing was staged, and there was no way in hell they would ever let me know, because if I found out, there's no way I would have participated, and there's no way I would have not called it out right from the beginning. You can't use people and manipulate them and then sell them and expect you're going to make money off other people's asses and think it's okay. It's like, that's evil. They just don't realize the damage they've done to people. Like Rick Fothergill and Tim Serby are not the same, and people can't understand how emotionally they're crippled because of what was done to them, and they think it's funny or why you're so angry. Like, you don't understand.
They totally robbed their reputation from them.
Exactly, and all these lies they have to put up with, and then the media keeps spinning this bullshit story. Like, it's a painful thing to see, and even Robert, like, it grieves me to this day still. Robert isn't the same after all that went down. Like, you know, for me, like, I'm not the same. You know, it's a very painful thing to have your friends sell you out like that. I don't know if Bill's still on a contract or not, but they got paid a lot of money, you know, and I hope they're happy. You know, you got your money, but you at what cost? And you have fame, but, well, infamous it isn't hard to become infamous. And, you know, if you really want to become infamous, we're almost at the edge of Bill's time to threaten to sue, but obviously he has no case. Like, but the sad part is, like, you know, we're probably just going to have to sue him to stop him and put this to an end and just stop this madness. Stop bothering people, man. Move on. Get on with your life. All this make-up story about me trying to sabotage him, like, don't you think that's defamation? He thinks this is heroic. Like, that's how insane he is. He thinks he's a tragic, heroic victim. Like, you know, it's ridiculous. And you're not even the best. Steve Harris and I go back a long way. He was part of the original U.S. national video team. When I was a kid, Steve was my hero. Steve and I are friends. We've been friends for a long time, but we're planning a massive documentary here to do with the Iron Man that was back in '85, and we're looking at maybe doing having a massive event at Comic-Con here this next year. And so when this documentary comes out, it's going to settle the score about everything. People don't realize who I am, and I don't really care if they don't know who I am. My friends know who I am, but I don't go out of my way to try and draw attention to myself. Like, we've been busy doing this Galaga stuff and making friends worldwide and increasing the community and trying to move it towards a more healthy thing where it's more fun hanging out and meeting each other and enjoying the people instead of just enjoying dominating and trying to be the best or whatever. Like, who cares, man?
I have to say, this whole thing has really gotten out of hand. The lies need to stop.
At
least Todd Rogers
okay,
had
hang
to say.
on. I'll stop. Yeah, he brings up a good point about Todd Rogers here. He actually got caught cheating at the game called Dragster. He apparently tampered with the code in the game or something, and it's crazy. It's crazy. It really is to hear all this, and you know, this is a guy that's pretty big in the the retro the arcade community. He's pretty big, and he would just blow it all away, just to to scam people, to con people. That to me, that's just sad. I mean, it to me, it's the worst thing to hear. But before we get into Billy's evidence here, which we're gonna go through this whole entire form here, because there is lots of evidence here that proves that Billy did in fact cheat. He did use MAME to to like he basically submitted the video footage, which he used a MAME emulator. He didn't use an actual arcade cabinet. And the reason why, it's such a big deal, why it's such a big deal, is because of the fact that he made this rule himself. that it has to be on a legit arcade cabinet. He made this rule himself, Billy did. Like they said, him and Walter, they basically founded Twin Galaxies, and I believe Walter sold it off to someone, and that Twin Galaxies, I gotta give them credit though here. They could have just swept all this under the rug. They could have defended Billy and everything, but no, they did the right thing. They made the right call.
Yeah, all I've really got to say is, wow, Billy, he's messed up in the head.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, this guy is so driven on ego that he has to sue the people that, fucking pretty much made him. And I get it. You're upset that you got exposed. I mean, shit happens, but you just gotta suck it up and move on. That's what you have to do. But instead, Billy wants to be this fucking man-child and think that money can, overpower people. Like, you could put all the money into a lawyer as much as you want, but that's not going to win you a lawsuit. Which I have a feeling that this lawsuit is going to be laughed out of court. Because there's nothing he can say or do. He got caught cheating. And there's nothing he can do about it. And we're going to go over this Reddit forum. That's how I found out about the documents. So, this is the dispute of Jeremy Young. He is one of the I think he's one of the members of Twin Galaxy that basically took Billy off, which I gotta say, once again, Twin Galaxies, you guys did the right thing. But nevertheless, we're gonna read the summary decision here. Based on the complete body of evidence presented in the official dispute thread, Twin Galaxies administrative staff has unanimously decided to remove all of Billy Mitchell's scores, as well as ban him from participating in our competitive leaderboards. We have notified Guinness World Records of our decision. So this was on February the 2nd. When they decided to file a dispute claim assertion against the validity of Billy Mitchell's historical and current original arcade Donkey Kong score performance of 1,047,200 points. The King Kong tape. That's what they used, which turned out to be from a MAME cabinet. Here's the thing. I have played on MAME cabinets before. It basically works like a MAME emulator. If that's what they used, then yeah, he basically wasn't using original arcade hardware. Because if you watch the footage, which Apollo Legend shows that in his video of Billy, he showed how the sprites render and everything. And it basically exposes that Billy did use MAME. And that's a big no-no.
Yeah, and I can sort of spot when an emulator is being used as well, considering I've used Visual Boy Advance to play Game Boy Advance games.
And did you see the spliced images? I mean, the spliced video footage there? Like, they basically took Billy's scores and Steve's scores, and they basically spliced them together to make it seem like it was Billy's footage. Like, they basically spliced footage. That's and you could tell it's spliced, and not only that, there's no audio. There is no audio at all. in the original footage. So that should tell you they're hiding something. They were hiding something. Okay, so he had 1,050,200 the mortgage broker score, and 1,062,800 the boomer score, on the technical basis of a demonstrated impossibility of original unmodified Donkey Kong arcade hardware to produce specific board transition images shown in the videotaped recordings of those adjudicated performances. So basically, they say MAME emulation, which that's a general term. MAME is basically an emulator where you could play arcade games, original arcade games. I have MAME. I play the original Mortal Kombat all the time. Nothing wrong with playing an emulation software itself, but if you're going to post high scores on, a site like Twin Galaxies or Guinness World Records, it's best to use the original hardware. Jeremy's assertion concluded that not only can original Donkey Kong arcade hardware not produce the board transition image shown in the recordings, but that these transitions were actually generated through the use of MAME emulation software. The rules for submitting scores for the original arcade Donkey Kong competitive leaderboards requires the use of original arcade hardware only. The use of MAME and any other emulation software for submission to these leaderboards is strictly forbidden. That's a big no-no, like I said. Jeremy Young provided his dispute case evidence to the dispute thread for both public and Twin Galaxies scrutiny and review. I don't know why they would put scrutiny. That's not the word I would look for. Twin Galaxies has meticulously tested and investigated the dispute case assertions as well as a number of relevant contingent factors such as the veracity of the actual video performances that the dispute claim assertions rely upon. In addition to Twin Galaxies' own investigation into the dispute case assertions, at least two different third parties conducted their own explorations and come to the identical conclusion. Most notable was the third party, which is Carlos Pinero, I think that's how you pronounce it, Pinero, that Billy Mitchell engaged to help examine the dispute case claims on his behalf, utilizing whatever original equipment Billy could provide, whose final finding was consistent with Twin Galaxies' investigation and others. Additionally, during the evidence-gathering period of this dispute, numerous experts, hobbyists, and casual observers participated and contributed to this investigation. Here are specific findings. So yeah, we're going to go over the specific findings here. This is what they found in their investigation. The taped Donkey Kong score performances of 1,047,200, 1,050,200, the mortgage broker score, that were historically used by Twin Galaxies to substantiate those scores and place them in the database, were not produced by the direct feed output of an original unmodified Donkey Kong arcade PCB. The 1,062,800, the boomer score, Donkey Kong performance does not have enough of a body of direct evidence for Twin Galaxies to feel comfortable to make a definitive determination on at this time. So that score, they're kind of up in the air with that. The 1,047 and 1,050 score performance videos we have in our possession and are basing our determinations on are in fact the performances that were used by previous Twin Galaxies administration as justification for those scores to be entered into the database, and for Twin Galaxies to attribute those specific accomplishments to Billy Mitchell. We have several different and unique sources of these performances and access to private God, I need to learn how to read. And access to private historical Twin Galaxies referee email distribution records showing where these sources acquired their copies and what the purpose was. So there's a lot of factors into this. You have the referees involved in this. You have members of Twin Galaxy involved in all this, like members of the previous administration. They had something to do with all this, and they were fucking hiding it. They were hiding all this information for well over a decade, or whenever they started. Which, yeah, Billy is, Billy was an affiliate with Twin Galaxies, which I'll go over that here in a little bit from, the evidence, that, is provided. And, yeah, what do you think of that? What do you think of Billy being in, that sounds fishy, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Billy, you set your own rules and you broke them. So
Yeah.
you screwed yourself here, bud.
Oh yeah.
Okay, you screwed yourself here.
And now he's just trying to defend himself because this is all he has left, people.
In the words of CM Punk, he just keeps bitching and bitching and bitching and bitching. And then he starts talking and then bitching.
All I gotta say to that is this.
Oh, Billy.
Oh, Billy. That's all I have to say. I mean, it goes over everything else in the investigation. I'm not going to go through everything here because it's obvious. It's obvious that he got his hands caught in the proverbial cookie jar. He got caught cheating. Now he's throwing a hissy fit over it because, oh, it's my legacy. How dare you? It's not true. I didn't cheat. The scores are legit. I bet they are. But let's view the evidence here that he provides. First, I gotta say this. This lawsuit is not, it's not, it's not the case right now. I mean, it's not going on right now. But, Billy Mitchell's lawyers did in fact send letters to Twin Galaxies, and they did send letters to Guinness World Records, and we're gonna read them. So, yeah, like you could tell, like these are California attorneys, by the way, and. Yeah.
California, huh?
Yep, California. And this was sent on September the 9th. So let's go over this letter. I'm going to read the whole entire thing here. Dear sirs and madam, well, how dare you assume my gender?
Did they just assume our genders?
Yeah. Just kidding. How dare you assume their gender, by the way? Gosh, you lawyers need to learn about political correctness in this world. Jeez. The following sets...
Get on Tumblr. They know everything.
Of course. The following sets forth Billy Mitchell's official demand for retraction by Guinness World Records and Twin Galaxies for their defamatory statements made against him. Shocker. Oh my gosh. They're defamatory? No. I don't believe you. April 12th, 2018, Twin Galaxies issued defamatory statements against Billy Mitchell's video game records and legacy, claiming he cheated to achieve his Donkey Kong scores. Yeah, how dare they? How dare they ridicule me? How dare they criticize me?
How did they actually defame him?
Apparently they said that he used a MAME emulator. That's considered as defamatory, I guess.
That's not defamatory at all.
Oh my god.
I mean, like I said, Billy helped create the rules. He got screwed by his own rules. In terms, he screwed himself.
Well, I mean, we'll just have to read the rest of this letter to find out what other statements were made. So let's continue reading. Specifically, Twin Galaxies stated that he did not achieve his scores on original unmodified hardware. Oh my gosh, the gall of them. That's such a defamatory statement. It hurts my heart. It really does. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Billy, that they said that you used unmodified hardware. I'm sorry. I truly am. Let me.
Oh.
That's how I feel. Twin Galaxies then stripped Mr. Mitchell of all of his records and achievements. Twin Galaxies followed its statement 10 hours later with articles such as 5 impressive and legitimate feats involving video games. This article, which heavily stressed that the records discussed were legitimate achievements, started by relocating Mitchell's most famous achievement, the perfect Pac-Man score, implying that Mitchell cheated to achieve it. Moreover, Twin Galaxies never clarified that Mitchell did not cheat to achieve this record. So that's one of the points that they bring up about, he didn't cheat on the Pac-Man score, but he, the Donkey Kong score, like they're trying to fucking sweep the Donkey Kong thing under the rug and be like, this is what they're saying. They're saying he cheated in Pac-Man. Is that really what they're saying? No, they're not.
Nope, it's clearly Donkey Kong they're talking about.
Yeah, but it's like, yeah, they didn't, clarify the perfect Pac-Man score, but here's the thing. How are we supposed to know that was legit as well? I mean, like, I don't get it. I don't get why he's bringing this up. Is he trying to find every possible way to, to defend himself?
Billy, my suggestion is this. Cut your losses and move on.
Yeah, I mean, dude, you're rich. I mean, you've earned your money from all this, so I mean, unless you've been spending it on shit that you don't really need, obviously. But dude, I would just admit that I was wrong and just enjoy the rest of my life. At this point, I mean, I wouldn't even go through with this. This is ridiculous. Like, this has nothing to do with the fact that you cheated, dude. The perfect Pac-Man score, you, just because you didn't cheat at that, or maybe you did cheat at it, we don't know. Just because you may have not cheated at one thing doesn't mean that we should overlook the fact that you cheated at Donkey Kong. And that's what he's trying to do. Alright, so the following day, April 13th, 2018, Guinness World Records followed suit, stating to Variety, The Guinness World Records titles relating to Mr. Mitchell's highest scores on Donkey Kong have all been disqualified due to Twin Galaxies being our source of verification for these achievements. We also recognize records for perfect score on Pac-Man and highest score on Pac-Man. The spokesperson added Twin Galaxies was the original source of verification for these record titles, and in line with their decision to remove all of Mr. Mitchell's records from their system, we have disqualified Mr. Mitchell as the holder of those two records. Guinness World Records will look to update and find the appropriate holder of these scores in the next few days. There's nothing defamatory about that. What's defamatory about that statement? Like, I'm trying to wrap my head around this, Billy. What's so defamatory about them just taking away all your scores? I mean, that's what happens, dude. When you get exposed, you lose everything. I mean, you fucked up, dude.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying he should just take what he has and move on. Because he can still potentially get some of that goodwill back if he just moves on with his life.
I mean, if he would just apologize, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would support him. And a lot of people would at least understand and forgive him. But the guy is looking for every fucking chance to, save himself. But it's too late. You're already in the fire. Notably,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Billy, you're in the quicksand, but you're moving, which is the biggest problem when in quicksand. It doesn't allow you to move free. It makes you sink faster.
Right. Notably, Guinness World Records then published its 2019 Gamers Edition book, see Figure 1, titled The Records That Never Were. Guinness World Records specifically cites the disqualification of Billy Mitchell's highest score on Pac-Man and the first perfect score on Pac-Man. Following that, Guinness stated that Mitchell's submitted scores were obtained while using MAME. In this statement, not only did Guinness World Records assert that Mitchell's records, specifically his Pac-Man records, never were, but its use of the generalized phrase submitted scores also asserted that all his achievements were obtained while using MAME. These statements are factually false. So, of course, we have the this image here, which really, like, that's just a general statement. That's not a statement of fact. Like, come on, people. That's not a defamatory statement. What they're saying here in this, I'm reading this. The records that never were, where they're talking about, how he used MAME. That's a general statement. That's considered a generalization, and it's not a statement of fact. From what I'm reading of it. It is important to note that Guinness World Records never conducted an investigation into Billy Mitchell's Pac-Man records. As a matter of fact, there is no evidence to support Guinness World Records' assertion that Mitchell's Pac-Man scores never were or were obtained while using MAME. Lastly, there is certainly no evidence to support the claim that all his submitted scores from 1982 to 2018 were achieved while using MAME. This is especially ridiculous considering MAME was created in 1997 and the majority of Mitchell's scores occurred in the 1980s. Well, emulation itself existed long before that. MAME wasn't even the first one. So yeah, he could have used any other emulation that works the same way as MAME. Which, granted, I will give Billy the benefit of the doubt here when I say this. Like, maybe, and just maybe, there is a arcade cabinet, a legit arcade cabinet, that loads up just like MAME does. But that's giving him too much credit here, I know. But, I mean, maybe there is. There's a slight chance that there is a arcade cabinet that is just like it.
There's a 1,000,000 to 1 chance that there is.
The Pac-Man score was from 1999. According to this, it's saying 1980s when he did it. But I guess that's when they started recording records for that. I'm not really sure how you got that, Jay Jones. But, I mean, I'd like to actually see the source of that, if you don't mind presenting that to me. I'd like to actually take a look at that. In addition, Walter Day, founder and owner of Twin Galaxies from 1981 to 2014, stands behind Billy Mitchell. Mr. Day, not the current Twin Galaxies administration, is the original adjudication source of Billy Mitchell's records. In line with Guinness World Records, words to Variety, see the earlier quote. The linked evidence package that accompanies this letter and Day's testimony warrants restoration of Billy Mitchell's achievements and legacy. Day's own letter is included in this demand for retraction, which includes his sworn testimony and advice from Guinness World Records. So you see, Walter Day, like, the guy is behind all this with him. So, of course, he's going to defend him. I mean, it's obvious. At Fun Spot was $73.99. Fun Spot. I would actually have to look into that. On July 3rd, 1999, Mitchell achieved the first perfect score of 3,333,360. Oh, that's from the Wikipedia page. I don't know about that. I mean, you can easily edit Wikipedia, so I don't usually use that as a reliable source, though. You can never trust Wikipedia, to be honest. I don't know. As to Twin Galaxies, its investigation did not provide Billy Mitchell fair opportunity to provide evidence to prove his innocence. Throughout the investigation, Twin Galaxies had a double standard. Specific evidence against Mitchell was accepted, while evidence of equal stature was rejected. Further, Twin Galaxies selected a biased third-party investigator with close ties to Donkey Kong Forum, another group defaming Billy Mitchell. This investigator was openly inflammatory throughout the investigation and expressed his support of score removal on the very first day of the dispute. There was nothing unbiased about him. This, along with other examples, displays a substantial level of constitutional malice. Okay, so I actually have the form up right here, and we're going to go through it after I get through all this horse shit here, because that's all this is. All this is complete and utter bullshit. Like, reading through all this, it's like, god damn. Like, he's doing everything to say that, oh, they're defaming me, they're stripping away my title. It's because you cheated. I mean, like, he doesn't want to admit the fact that he cheated and that he got caught doing it. That they're not even considering the evidence. They're not even dismissing the evidence. that was brought up against him. Like, come on. Who are you fooling?
Himself.
I mean, and all this guy wants out of this is just to get his fucking name on the fucking leaderboards. Like, come on, dude. There's more to life than a fucking high score. But I forgot.
Exactly.
That's all that he's known for. Go ahead, J-Man. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I just said exactly. All Billy Jones is or Billy Mitchell. I mean, blah.
Billy
I don't know why I
Jones.
said I don't know why I said that, but a lot of Billy just doesn't seem to understand that he lost. So now he's throwing in some sort of tantrum, saying, "No, no, no! No, that's real! That's real! That's real!" It's really childish, really, really upsetting, and it's definitely to the point where Billy needs to cut his losses and just move on.
He's basically digging himself further and further, and you know the gaming community has lost all respect for him because of this. And it's just a damn shame. I kind of feel bad for him in a way that, you know, this is what he's known for. In a way, I feel bad for him. But at the same time, it's like, come on, dude, suck it up. The issue with the Pac-Man score, the time entered is wrong. Oh yeah, that's right. Because they tried to say it was like 6 hours, and then after 6 hours, and you know before 6 hours. He says 5 hours and 30 minutes. Yeah, that's impossible. That's an impossible to even do that. Probably. I mean, I don't know. I've never even tried to get a perfect score at Pac-Man because I suck at Pac-Man. Like, I really do. Like, if you give me a friggin' arcade of Pac-Man, and I'll fuck it up because I suck at it.
Yeah, and I can't speed run at all. I need to. I want to enjoy the story in modern games. That's why I'm not a huge retro game fan, because a lot of them don't have a story.
Well, I mean, that's not necessarily true. I mean, some video games back then, you know, they came with an instruction booklet, and you read the story, or you know, some games that I played on my old Apple II computer, they didn't really have you know, enough to put text there, so they would have you look at an index. They'd give you an index number, and you would actually have to open up a book and read it yourself just to get the story. Billy should pay back the money he made from King Kong, as he was not even the record holder at the time. Steve first submitted as deceptively depicted in the so-called document. Yes, I saw the spliced footage. You know, that of Billy's and Steve's score. Like, that's what they did. They took Steve's footage and they spliced it in with Billy's, and they submitted it to Twin Galaxies. He basically took they took credit for a lot of these scores, and it's a damn shame. And yes, he should pay back. He should pay back, you know, all the money he got.
You should also pay back Cartoon Network.
Oh God, that's another can of worms.
Because Cartoon Network used his likeness.
Oh, how dare you!
And funny enough, they gave him a big head.
Hey! Big head for a small mind.
Yeah, so it's clear that Cartoon Network already knew about his massive ego.
I'm pretty sure they do. But let's finish this letter so that way we can move on to the good stuff. Because I'm not even going to bother with the fucking evidence that he shows. Because Dwayne already explained it, you know, how full of shit he is. Earlier I played a clip of Dwayne, you know, Apollo Legends conversation with Dwayne. He basically fucking destroyed Billy's whole entire document. But nevertheless, the letter demands that both Twin Galaxies and Guinness World Records retract their claims against Billy Mitchell and immediately restore his achievements and good name. Yeah, you better, guys, because Billy is serious. This is serious business.
By the way, to everyone whose last name is Mitchell, you are free to disown Billy as any relative of yours, or you could even take away his last name.
By the way.
Oh, Billy.
Oh, Billy. Okay, attached to this letter via link is the full evidence package, which proves that the claims of Twin Galaxies and Guinness World Records are false. The evidence includes witness affidavits, historical documentation, scientific evidence, gameplay and analysis, expert witnesses, and Walter Day's letter with sworn affidavit. Due to the overwhelming evidence, neither Twin Galaxies nor Guinness World Records can possibly refuse this retraction request and claim to be acting without constitutional malice. This letter must have been written by an evil villain. That's what it sounds like. Constitutional malice. Which, first of all, you would have to prove that it is malice. Which you don't. That's right. Tim was actually the record. Steve was trying to beat not Billy's 1982 score. Hi, funny subject. Garrett Bobby Ferguson. I do not know who that is.
By the way, from today on, can we just call Billy Mitchell Turd Ferguson?
Turd Ferguson?
Yes.
Turd Ferguson. That's actually a name of a band. No joke.
Oh boy, and it was also on S and L when
Turd Ferguson. But how are they going to prove malice, though? How are they going to prove that? I mean, they must have they must have something up their sleeve here, because it's gonna be pretty hard to prove that there was malice intent with them stripping Billy of his title. The request for retraction is for all of Billy Mitchell's records, and partial retraction will not suffice. Both Twin Galaxies and Guinness World Records must retract their claims, impugning Mitchell's scores publicly, so the damages done to him will finally begin to reverse. There was a press release against Billy Mitchell, and there must be a reciprocal release in his favor. No. Guy was fucking cheating. So, this is going to be laughed out. I mean...
By the way, yeah, has Billy Mitchell ever been to any cons?
I think he has. I'm pretty sure he has been to a bunch of cons.
I'm wondering how many consulates he ran into.
There was an interview that he recently did back in February at some sort of gaming expo. I seem to remember Time's score being stated as constantly disputed and impossible to verify as the reason he was disenfranchised. That was not true. I did actually see some screenshots of that, which I believe it was on Twin Galaxies website. There's a couple of screenshots that Apollo Legends shows, but I think it was the boomer score that was not verified. The boomer score. You probably know what I'm talking about. The boomer score in Donkey Kong. I'm guessing that's what it's talking about. That wasn't verified because I mean they even mentioned that in the investigation that they couldn't verify it. So you know, it's inconclusive. Cartoon Network character Billy sued over was named GBF, Garrett Bobby Ferguson. Okay. Okay, I understand now. It's the name of the character in regular show.
Oh, yeah.
Ironic that it was Billy's scores that are now constantly disputed and impossible to verify. Yeah, they're just trying to do everything they can to throw Guinness Book of Records and everybody, you know, under the bus here. Billy being a scumbag around 2 minutes and 20 seconds. At Teddy Edwards 2 is correct. Tim's score was verified and in the scoreboard. Yeah, I did see that. And I think it's also on the forum here, which we're going to look at. I would keep Billy's scores on the boards with an asterisk, but he would have to pay back the money he made in return. I wouldn't keep his scores at all. I mean, here's what I would do, because from the sounds of it, and this is just from what I've read and what I've watched a lot of videos on this subject matter. So, you know, probably what I'm going to be saying is not anything new, but I think what Twin Galaxies needs to do in this case, because it sounds to me that a lot of these scores, a lot of them, I'm guessing a lot of them that they can't be verified, they can't be trusted. And what I think that Twin Galaxies should do is they should just wipe the whole entire slate clean. Start over again. I mean, you could keep the scores, like some of the newer scores that are on there, which when I went on there, I did look at some of the new scores of it. But I would just wipe the slate clean, get rid of all the unverified scores, and keep the ones that are already verified. That's what I would do if I was Twin Galaxy. Like, that way everyone gets the chance to be on there. Dwayne was able to get a copy of that game as well. Predates Steve by 3 years. Yeah, Dwayne did. I think he did. I think he did hold a record for that. If I'm not mistaken. Seth Gordon graduated from Yale. Yale what? Yale's elementary school. The film director either lied or did a lousy job researching for King of Kong. I heard that Billy was actually endorsed by the producers of this film. Like, a lot of shady things going on in this film. Just the way they directed everything, the way some of the reactions were in the documentary. I watched a couple of minutes of it. Well, It's an hour-long documentary or 2-hour-long documentary. But it just seems very odd watching it. Like, now knowing this information, just very odd to watch how the people react, how I mean, there was a lot of people in the documentary, but it's just odd to me. The request for retraction is for all of Billy Mitchell's records. Okay, yeah, I already read that. Sorry. Each corporation has a 14-day deadline to review the information and issue the retraction, or we will resort to legal recourse, our final option. We urge Guinness World Records to independently evaluate the evidence and not rely on Twin Galaxies, which did not force Guinness to make the defamatory statements. As such, Guinness World Records will be held responsible, and hiding behind its partnership with Twin Galaxies will be perceived as a refusal of this retraction request. So, because of the fact that Guinness World Records is relying on Twin Galaxies to verify all these scores, that makes them solely responsible. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Billy. You're just a scumbag. You're a complete and total scumbag. Seth Gordon, yeah, I read that. Have any hard question about the tech work of the investigation? I was the tech that worked on the claimed machine used. Well, actually, it's funny you say that, because there's evidence here in this forum talking about the machine work. So, I mean, that's what we're going to go over, because this is just, to me, a lot of this, you can't deny this. You would have to be an idiot to deny all this. And I heard that one of the, there was a video out there, where they were changing the parts of the machine, one of the machines. They were changing one of the boards of the machine to Donkey Kong Jr. And it was the same fucking board that they took out. Because with Donkey Kong Jr., there's like a yellow circuit boards. No, wait, it was the yellow things on the... I'm not a friggin' tech person. I'm really not.
Me either, but I think that Apollo Legend also would talk about that.
Yeah, Apollo Legend didn't talk about that, but I am the worst when it comes to, tech. I mean, I'm good with computers. I know how to use them, but and when it comes to, other technology, I'm an idiot. But 1 year ago today, Twin Galaxies announced the verdict in Video Game Trial of the Century #2. Disgraced Video Game Player of the Century Billy Mitchell was found to have fabricated evidence, as his first two submissions of over 1 million points on the original Donkey Kong 1,047,200 in 2005 and 1,050,200 in 2007 were found to be fraudulent. Twin Galaxies decided there was insufficient evidence to make a definitive ruling on the third million point score, 1,062,800 in 2010, but the evidence against the previous scores was clear-cut. As is the fate of any cheater, all of Billy's scores were stripped from Twin Galaxies' scoreboard and from Guinness. So, by the way, this is the forum, the Donkey Kong forum, and John McCurdy, he is the current holder of the highest points in Donkey Kong. And look at this. This person uses MAME. Look at that. I'm guess I don't know how this forum works. I know it's different from Twin Galaxy, so I guess it works differently. It has its own score system. The Boomer board swap video, yes. I believe Fothergill has a trophy and all expenses trip to Japan coming. Oh gosh, that would be interesting. Another fun fact that Dwayne pointed out was that Namco picture, which he uses in his evidence package. The picture where Billy is holding that plaque, the Pac-Man plaque, you know, because he got the perfect score in Pac-Man. All that was a fucking marketing. It turned out to be a marketing thing. It wasn't a competition or anything like that. It was all marketing, which is ridiculous.
So, in other words, there's no reason for that to be among the evidence.
Yeah, they're trying to justify that as, you know, him, you know, yeah, these scores are legit. He's a legit. And maybe they are. Maybe he can get the perfect score in Pac-Man. Maybe he can get the perfect score in Donkey Kong. That's not what people are, you know, saying. People are getting on to you for cheating, for using MAME. And for all this other shit that, you know, they're calling you out on. I mean, no one's denying his skills as a gamer. I mean, he seems like he's actually legit good. But, you know, that's not going to restore his reputation. It's not. I hate to tell people that, but it's not. This anniversary gives us a chance to beat this dead horse one more time. Yeah, and they cross that. I mean, to collect the evidence and arguments in one place, including material that emerged after the official dispute's conclusion. Billy Mitchell's denials and recriminations have been fervent and assertive, inspiring confidence in some and leading bystanders to believe perhaps the evidence is ambiguous when in fact the evidence against him is crystal clear. Of course, people who refuse to fairly weigh the evidence cannot be helped. However, I can provide simple resource anyone can point to help settle the matter for anyone who simply wants to know the truth. Yes, there is a lot of evidence to go through. That's because Billy Mitchell is super duper guilty of having pulled one of the biggest cons in gaming history. Note, in the interest of cutting down wordiness, sources below are not named outright. Inline links provide attribution and further reading. Very little of what follows represents my own original research. Alright, so we're going to go through the means and motives and opportunity. Before getting to the actual evidence, prosecuting any crime requires establishing means, motive, and opportunity. As described below, the means was MAME, the emulator of choice of arcade games. Emulator tools like save states allow a player to redo levels as many times as they want until a desired outcome is achieved. Additionally, regular MAME allows these segments of recorded inputs to be replayed in whole, giving the illusion of uninterrupted play without the need to resort to video editing. In addition to the usual cheater's motive, the question of who would be verified as the first million-point player of Donkey Kong, primarily a contest between Billy Mitchell and Steve Steve Weeby. Sorry, I'm not good with names. Steve, I'll just call him Steve, had yet to be resolved. And lastly, the opportunity was Billy's ability to submit tapes and scores to Twin Galaxy with all little scrutiny compared to his competitors. So that's basically the motive of why he would submit those tapes and why. I mean, it's obvious he's trying to stay on top. He's trying to stay on top. He doesn't want anyone else to take the title of the King of Kong. So he's going to do everything to keep that title. Which means, sabotaging footage, to make it look like, his gameplay is legit. Or, using save states. He's going to do everything to keep that title for himself. And not give anyone the chance to beat it. If that does not come off to you as egotistical and manipulative, I can never say that word, manipulative, then I don't know what else. I don't know what else to tell you. MAME signatures. While there had for years been speculation within the competitive Donkey Kong community that Billy's tapes were not authenticate, it lacked the proverbial smoking gun. This changed when an evidence package was finally published by Jeremy Young, I think that's his username, on February the 2nd, 2018, proving that Billy's world record tapes could never have been produced by original Donkey Kong hardware. And you can see the screenshots here. That's the arcade. Basically, it explains right there in the transition screens the way that works. You have the arcade, Billy's footage, his first footage, his second footage, and then you have MAME. So it's crystal clear he's using MAME. Just look at that. Like, hang on, if I can. Gosh, that didn't work. Oh boy. But yeah, it shows it right here. But what do you think of all this, J-Man?
I think this is just very scummy and very anti-competitive. Just doesn't seem to be willing to vacate the throne, so to speak. Personally, I think he should give everyone a chance to beat his high score.
Yeah, I mean, at least, in terms of the arcade record, that is. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the arcade footage, the way it loads up, and then you look at the MAME, and then you compare that to Billy's footage, it's obvious he's using MAME. Transition screens. Donkey Kong draws level screens in a fraction of a second too quickly for the human eye to observe the process. While much of MAME Donkey Kong resembles its original counterpart, the ways these screens are drawn are substantially different. The original arcade cabinet draws in a left-to-right sweep, while MAME draws in snapshots, resulting in unique transition screens and identifiers on each of the 4 level boards. Above is just one example of a transition screen that identifies MAME apart from the arcade. Now, like I said, I would give Billy the benefit of the doubt if if logically, if this even makes any sense, that there could possibly be a cabinet of Donkey Kong that loads up the same way as MAME does. But that's, that I know that probability is probably small. But, you gotta give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that is the case. Or maybe he fucking cheated. Which I'm my conclusion is he probably cheated. And that's, my likely conclusion. So I'm still gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe there is a cabinet out there somewhere in Egypt or some place, some rural area.
It's probably in Atlantis, at the bottom of
the ocean. Yeah, or in heaven, because a lot of people say Billy Mitchell looks like Jesus. No, he looks like the fucking Antichrist. Oh, God. Okay. Yeah, by the way, make that into a meme. I dare you. Billy Mitchell is not Jesus Christ. He is the Antichrist. Pirate said that. The girder finger. The most noticeable MAME identifiers appear on the iconic barrel board. The third girder is captured halfway through rendering, which, depending on MAME settings, results in the unique pointing figure, which came to be called the girder finger. The girder finger screen is seen multiple times on each of Billy's 2 available submission tapes, 1.47 million and 1.05 million. As well as on what little footage we have from Billy's 1.062 million score as shown at the Big Bang event in 2010. Despite numerous attempts by multiple parties and despite a $1,000 bounty offered by Donkey Kong competitor Wes Copeland, no method was ever found of producing this girder finger on original hardware. So that's one thing to keep in mind. So that's basically like the mark that, this is clearly MAME footage here. That's basically the birthmark, I guess you could say. That this is fucking MAME that he's running. And Carlos, maybe you could confirm this. I mean, you claim that you are knowledgeable at arcade cabinets. Have you ever seen an arcade cabinet that has loaded up like MAME, that has this signature, basically? Because if that is not the case, then that basically destroys all of the claims that I brought up earlier about this possibly loading up the same way. But we don't know. We don't know. But, I mean, it doesn't really matter at all. Because it's clear from the original footage here. Look at that. Oh, God. Fuck. I knocked over my Switch. I'm sorry, people. Look at that. I mean, you see the friggin' signature right there. Look at that. And that's the original arcade look right there. You don't see that. You don't see the friggin' girder finger there. No real arcade board will ever produce that third girder image. Okay, thank you. That confirms everything. So yeah, Billy, how do you explain that? That's something that even an expert who has worked cabinets can confirm that it doesn't load up the same way as MAME. How do you explain that? So, yeah. I can't defend you now. I can't give you the benefit of the doubt now. So yeah, you're fucked. Barrel without Kong. And for those of you who are wondering why the footage is flipped upside down here, it's because it was recorded on MAME, and the original MAME, I guess when recording footage, it was flipped like this. Like you had to hold your television or something like upside down or something. Or not upside down, sideways. You have to hold your television sideways. I'm not going to do that. It's my television. It's too big. But that's how you had to play MAME back in the day. Of course, now it doesn't have that problem. But yeah, that's why that screenshot is like that. Barrel without Kong. During the dispute, it was observed that when original hardware loads the barrel board, the blue barrel in the bottom corner is never rendered separately from Donkey Kong in the upper left. In several instances on Billy's tape, the barrel is rendered before Kong as is consistent with some versions of MAME. Note that this identifier is not definitive in that camera's rolling shutter effect, shutter effect, more on that below, has produced these frames from valid gameplay, but only when pointing an external camera at a TV or monitor. The frame depicting the barrel without Kong should never appear in an original direct feed, as Billy submissions are supposed to be. That's another factor. It, like, just the way it loads up, you can tell whether or not he's using an actual arcade machine. The way it loads up the sprite images, and it's unique how technology has evolved now. Now we could capture any moment on camera. We didn't have to bring a fucking camcorder to everything. We just record it from our phones, and and that would be good evidence. But I mean, of course, in the 80s, I don't think that Twin Galaxies or any publication of scores, I don't know if they actually had video footage available for confirming this stuff. If I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong. To verify some of these scores. I mean, this is according to what Apollo Legends has stated. Like, he said there's some scores that haven't even been verified. So there could be potential people out there that are the true score holders. The highest score holders. But, I mean, of course, Billy was one of the first verified people to, get a high score in Pac-Man, which I don't even know how they were able to verify it without video footage. I mean, yeah, they had someone there, but I'm pretty sure video cameras existed back in the day, so I don't understand why they couldn't have just recorded it. But nevertheless, let's continue. Barrel before bonus. On original hardware, the bonus timer in the upper right is always rendered before the barrel in the bottom left. On earlier versions of MAME, the opposite is true. The barrel is loaded before the timer. In Billy's submission, the barrel is loaded before the timer. This is much less likely to be caused by camera distortion, given that the barrel side of the screen would have to be a full 2 frames ahead of the timer set. Or timer side. I like how people are pointing all this out. It's very fascinating, actually. Like, knowing how sprites appear, and, camera fixtures and everything, like, it's it's fascinating. Very fascinating. Barrel before bonus. I've already read that. This one right here. Rivet ramp. When the rivet board is completed, the blue girders underneath Kong collapse into a neat pile. On MAME, this stacking is instantaneous. However, on arcade, there is a transitional screen where portions of the girders are rendered in the form of a crude ramp. This arcade signature frame is never observed in Billy's submissions. In the old days, you can use a referee or a tape submission that needs to go to a process. But the 1.05 million game was verified by Todd Rogers, who was also kicked off the records for cheating. Also, yeah, that's another guy that got caught cheating at Dragster. I mentioned him earlier, but the difference though between him and Billy, it's actually fascinating. He is not trying to pursue any lawsuits on anyone that I know of. It seems like he's just moving on with his life, which is something you should be doing, Billy. Why can't you take Todd's advice and just accept it? You messed up and just move on with your life.
I'm going to be blunt here. Billy, just fuck off and chill.
Just fuck off. But it's fun just, looking at the footage here, how, you compare the arcade to the MAME. Like, MAME back then, gosh. Like, it was so different, as it is now, because you can... here's the thing with MAME. Like, here's the thing with MAME back then, because I used to play with MAME. It was just... Like, it was fun to mess around with some of the settings. Like, you could actually change the color of the game, the color scheme. Just a lot of things were, I mean, it was very limited, yes. It was very limited to what it was, what it is now. I mean, now you can pretty much do anything. You can manipulate the scores. You can do this and that. You can slow down the footage. You can... There's ways you can, you can even challenge yourself by slowing down the footage. But early MAME, like, you could easily point out differences, like, between early MAME and arcade now. How early MAME worked and how arcade worked. I mean, I didn't have a lot of money to waste on arcade machines, so I had no choice but to use MAME. And I would just download games online, and just play them. But I mean, the only place that around here, the only place that was available for arcades was, Oasis Pizza Place. It had a Galaga machine, I remember. And Galaga, the way Galaga loads up on MAME, how the sprite, it works sort of the same way as Donkey Kong. The sprites just appear, but like they appear like, in screenshots, like in MAME, but in the arcade they appear differently. And like I said, that's fascinating stuff to me, to just see how much technology has evolved. It's amazing, and it's like giving me nostalgia just looking at some of these pictures of early MAME, and gosh, Billy, you killed a hobby.
let me just add on to this. MAME was modding before modding was cool.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a lot of shit with MAME. I mean, not as much as you could now, but you could. There's a couple things you could do with MAME, like the early version of it. And besides, I mean, that's all you had. I mean, a lot of us couldn't afford to go to arcade machines, and plus, I mean, this was after the video game recession. Like, arcades didn't really recover that much. Like, you were seeing a lot of less arcade places. And also, you notice the TV. Like, one of the TVs in that picture, that's early MAME right there. You can tell. You can tell that's early MAME. Like, you could tell because the way the TV is, the way the TV is tilted, that's the way MAME loaded up, That was the way the original MAME loaded up. Gosh, I remember I had a Panasonic TV and, like, sitting it on the floor. Like, it was a big-ass TV. Like, it was, like, really big. Like, almost the size of the hole I have here in my computer desk. Like, that's how big the fucking TV was. And fucking moving it. Like, to tilt it just to play MAME games on it. Gosh, that was a bitch. But, yeah, that's one way you could tell it's MAME. Obviously. Screen orientation. Earlier MAME output at the wrong screen orientation from Arcade Direct feed, requiring a television to be tilted the wrong way. Billy's first 2 tapes are output in this incorrect fashion. In this dispute, this was acknowledged as proof that no matter what else an undisclosed computer had to have processed the video. Billy's third submission from Big Bang was oriented in the correct fashion, but since it shows other MAME signatures, it is believed the error was since caught and corrected with a simple line command in MAME. Yeah, you can put borders and shit in it. That's what I loved about it too. Like, you could put different colors. Just the little things about it was just so much fun. Gray border. When the original submission tapes were tracked down by Twin Galaxies, Jace Hall noted that the 1.05 million score included a partial gray border, visible only with a VCR capable of showing the overscan area, includes our area outside the normal television boundary. It would appear to be a digital frame, overwritten partially on one side by the actual gameplay window. The border was not present on Billy's previous submission of 1.047 million, which I find that odd, because why would he have that gray border in one of the footages, but it's not in the other footage? I guess he fucked up there. While Billy's technician Rob Childs had claimed the only piece of equipment involved in the direct feed capture other than the DK cabinet and the VCR was a converter produced by 2-bit score. This border suggested, at the very least, a computer capture which was not disclosed. So, what do you make of this, Carlos? What do you make of this? To me, I mean, it's pretty clear he used a computer to be able to capture this. He had to have. I mean, that doesn't even look like, to me, that doesn't even look like an arcade board at all. I mean, I may not be smart at, arcade cabinets, but that does not look like an arcade board at all. Because there's a lot more going on the board than just that. But what do you think, J-Man?
I don't know his tech that well either. I mean, I don't even know computer tech that well. But...
And yeah, like, here's the thing, like, even if he says it was an arcade, like, it wouldn't load up the same way as, a computer would. Arcade cabinets don't load up like that.
But I will say this, though, it does sort of look more like a home PC sort of thing than an arcade cabinet.
Yeah. That, what we were told, was BS. The output of the 2-bit converter does not match what we see in this gameplay tapes. In his gameplay tapes. So, basically, 2-bit score, yeah, that's what is being claimed, but let's see what, because it's linked here, what the direct feed here. This is from my friend and colleague Robert Childs regarding the dispute. There is a lot here, so please be patient with yourself, and when you have time, read with an open mind. Billy Mitchell's Donkey Kong dispute, my tech analysis. Normally, I do not get involved in disputes and arguments, especially one as silly as this. However, as a witness to the event and technician who performed the game/equipment setup for Billy Mitchell, I can attest Bill did not submit his record scores playing it on MAME. It all boils down to this. When you hook up a 1980s era Donkey Kong board to a 2000s era RGB to NTSC converter board, and then run it to a 1970s technology VCR for recording God only knows what it will do to the signal. Billy is my childhood friend. However, I am not writing this post because Billy is my friend, but rather it is the truth. I would take that with a grain of salt, honestly. Because, I mean...
it's the... Being a friend, there's automatic bias there.
There is automatic bias there, but, I mean... To me, like... From what I saw in the footage and everything, the way it loads up, it loads up exactly like MAME, and I don't know how you can explain that. Let's see. Let's see here. The following is a layman's Why is it like that? Why is the text like that? The following is a layman's explanation of the hookup and used for each of Billy Mitchell's scores. Also below is posted a technical explanation for those who are so inclined. Yeah, I'm definitely inclined. How were you able to get this process? In the comparison between Steve's video and Billy's in the side-by-side, the difference are apparent. The purpose here is to explain the difference. Those unfamiliar with the explained method of hookup to record have raised an unnecessary firestorm of innuendo and accusation. Said firestorm could easily have been avoided if Billy Mitchell had first been asked instead of being accused. This explanation and the more detailed technical explanation below will answer the claims of those unfamiliar in this method of recording. In Steve's video, he used a camera on a tripod angled slightly behind him. This showed on the recording the screen as Steve actually saw it. This is the common way of filming a score submission. In Billy's video recording, he did not use MAME. Billy used a RGB to NTSC video converter board to record his footage. I still have the original receipt for this board, which I can post if asked. He paid $200 for the board. The way the video converter board works is that it translates the entirety of the RGB type signal, which is what originates from the DK video game board. But NTSC, when the signal is run through the converters, the NTSC signal is what VCRs and TVs of all types used back in the day. The entire reason Billy used a video converter was for direct feed after my expensive camera was once destroyed when it was knocked over. Cameras were nearly $1,000 in those days versus a safely out of the way $200 video converter board. I don't know what to think of this, to be honest, because I'm really not an expert at this, so I can't really say much about his claim. But I mean, I'm just going based off of the images that, you know, it loads up just like MAME. That doesn't explain how it loads up exactly like MAME. And I mean, I don't really care much about the process of how he recorded it. I want to know why the footage itself loads up like MAME if he's not playing it from MAME. That's something I'd really want to know. It is important to understand that the visual Billy Important to understand, Billy saw on his DK monitor is exactly the same type of RGB display that Steve saw on his monitor and ultimately was recorded by his camera. The converted video offers no advantage to the player as the player never sees it during gameplay. The converter signal is sent solely to the VCR. The converter hookup works like this. The video converter is connected directly to the video output of the DK inverter board. The inverter receives the video from the DK board itself, not the Sanyo monitor that the player sees from his view. The converter board does its job translating RGB to NTSC, which goes to the VCR and is recorded as the finalized media. There is no possibility of an advantage to the player using this method of recording. The translation of RGB to NTSC changes the video's appearance and characteristics of signal, as in a CGA monitor, to a MAME looking signal output. However, if you want to make the argument this recorded video signal appears more MAME looking, maybe it does. Looking MAME is not MAME, nor a violation that even approaches cheating. I find that hard to believe, though. I seriously do. I mean, according to Carlos, no arcade machine loads up like that at all. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to believe because I'm not smart at this type of stuff when it comes to how, video conversion works and, video outputs. I'm not educated at that. I got an art degree. I mean, that's the best thing I can say. Like, I want to say it's bullshit because, I mean, to say that something is MAME looking when MAME didn't even MAME existed in 97, like the letter states, but I mean, gosh, they're talking about the Donkey Kong documentary that they did, and it's hard to I just don't know how to comment on this. Alright, and he goes on to his techno explanation. Yeah, and a lot of people have called him out, saying this process cannot plausibly change the rendering order to match MAME identically. If you are still in possession of the original setup, then you have a golden opportunity to settle this, and with no technical explanation necessary, I would strongly suggest that you do a quick recording of gameplay and upload it to YouTube. If the video shows the MAME-like transitions, then you'll go a long way toward vindicating Billy. Maybe. But that's his words against what everyone else is saying. Like, that to me, it seems like he's doing this to try to defend his friend. Because we don't even know if that is even true. We don't know if that's even the case. He would have to show video evidence of that. That, that it works like that. But let's just move on from that. Let's talk about the fact that, and by the way, if he's using a video recorder, what about the audio output? Like, you would think that would transition, right? You'd think that would transition well. But there's no audio in the original footage. The versions of MAME available at the time had incorrect sound effects for Donkey Kong, which would have been a dead giveaway. Instead, the submissions simply lack audio, despite the fact that the 2-bit score converter has an option for audio output. Billy's other technician, Carlos... Oh, Carlos, that's you! Defended the lack of audio by saying it was trickier to include and not as important as the video capture. Okay. So, like, could you explain, like, why there is no audio output? Actually, I'd actually like to have an interview with you one day. Maybe you can go into depth about that. Because, like, that makes no sense to me why he wouldn't have audio. I mean, yes, MAME didn't put audio signals out correctly. I mean, but it's odd to me. I tested that setup for months at the shop. It's not what we saw on the video. Okay. So, in the video, like, in the original video, it did have audio? Or, like if it was captured by a computer, or if it was captured by some sort of device that, you know, transferred the signals of the video, and then it shouldn't have affected the audio at all. You'd have the original audio. But you claim that you tested the setups. But honestly, I would like to have an interview with you over this. If there's any way I can get in contact with you, and have you on board the stream here, or, you know, have you in one of my streams later on. Because, I mean, I'd like to actually talk to you about this stuff, because it seems very fascinating the way they're going about the technical aspects of why, you know, his video looks like it's MAME. And them showing off Steve's video setup there and Billy's. That was true. It was a statement I made, but this wasn't early testing. My final finding was that there is no way they used the setup stated by his friend. Okay. Alright. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I'm not a technical type of person, though. Like, and from what you said, that, you know, there's no way that a cabinet could load up like that, like MAME. And you know, it would have shown in the video that, you know, the cabinet would have not loaded up like that. Because really, I mean, from what I know about video transfer, like, and this is my minimal knowledge on this type of stuff. The video output just it doesn't affect how things transition on the screen. It would copy the same exact transitions that, you know, you would see in an arcade. And I guess it's probably coded that way or something, but that's the only thing I know about video converting and video transferring, because you're just making a copy of what's on the television screen, or what's being displayed. That's all you're doing. You're copying it. But yeah, they mentioned you in this. Incorrect loading screen. As with the incorrect sound effects, an incorrect loading screen would have been a dead giveaway for MAME. Original arcade produces a chaotic and semi-randomized mess, which has come to be known as a rug pattern, whereas MAME shows a grid of discolored zeros. Again, like the sound effect issue, the matter is avoided in Billy's tapes by simply never showing the loading screen with the tape, beginning with the game already running. While the absence of the loading screen and the audio are not conclusive proof of anything, it's such a shame that these obvious differences would have helped settle the matter right away, were somehow left off the tapes. Yeah, why would they cut that proportion out? Correct, unless the cabinet has MAME inside, but he rules he rules our original board, and Billy claims it was real original board. Something tells me they used a MAME board. They somehow took out the original board and replaced it with a MAME board. That's what I believe. And that's probably what you believe too. They used a MAME board.
That's probably what happened to begin with.
But I mean, you can easily tell the way the game the original arcade loads up, and you know everything else loads up. And why they would try so hard to hide everything. If they had nothing to hide, why was it edited this way? Why was some of the footage spliced up? But the rules. Yeah, but the rules are original board, and Billy claims it was the original board. Okay. You're fine, by the way, Carlos. I make the same type of mistakes when typing. Wish YouTube just had an editing feature. But other technical oddities. A number of other assorted oddities have been observed in Billy's tapes. They actually run a tiny bit slower than genuine Donkey Kong gameplay when paired side by side. Yeah, and if it was converted, to NTCS, if it was converted by any device, any capturing device, then it wouldn't have affected that at all. I mean, I've done capture card stuff. I mean, unless he had a very weak computer or something like that, there's no way. Yeah, it wasn't played on a cabinet. That's your opinion? I'm going to go with your opinion then. For instance, on the King of Kong's DVD extras, when paired against Steve Weeb's tape, Billy's bonus timer ticks down slightly more slowly, most noticeably on the elevator stage. The flashing 1-up also desyncs from Weeb's tape, even though both are started at the same time. Speaking of the flashing 1-up, the flashing does not appear to be as consistent as it should be. While this was strange, it was not as conclusive as the other main identifiers. And thank you for the subscription. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Arcade signatures. No arcade signatures, definitive or conditional, needed to be explained away. Each of the indicators present pointed toward MAME in fact. The converter they claim was used, the 2-bit converter, is an analog converter. Okay. That makes a lot more sense now, because I actually have an analog converter somewhere in my closet over here, actually, because that's what I used to use to capture gameplay footage, which looked really bad. Like, it was all pixely, and just everything about it was awful. Which means it doesn't change anything in the video but the signaling. Exactly. It doesn't, it shouldn't change it should not change the video at all. Because you're ripping it straight from the source. You're ripping it straight from the video source, like the television, or you know, wherever you're capturing it from. That's how capturing devices work. Is you're capturing it on the television screen, or you're capturing it from a source. So that shouldn't affect anything. No arcade signatures, definitive or conditional, need to be explained away. Each of the indicators present pointed toward MAME. In fact, Billy's own technician, during the course of the dispute, Billy had a small team of people working to establish the legitimacy of his submission tapes, which he was simultaneously claiming weren't his tapes after all. More on that below. Among them was a former GameWorks technician named Carlos. There you are again. Pinheiro and crew were able to establish some elements of the case, including how to get the 2-bit score converter to produce a color signal. However, Pinheiro's work with actual Donkey Kong cabinet produced screen transitions consistent with established arcade transitions. No way was found to produce MAME transitions using authentic hardware. Thus, Billy's own technician was forced to conclude the tapes could not have originated from the original Donkey Kong hardware, like you said earlier. Holy shit. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that definitely blows my whole claim about, how cabinets could work like that. Maybe there was a rare cabinet that, loaded up like MAME. But, yeah, gosh, I don't know what to think now. It's like my mind is like blown. Which means it doesn't change anything in the video, but the signaling. They couldn't explain the MAME transition, so they tried to blame Dwayne for altering their video on the tape to match MAME. To match MAME? Okay, let me read this again. They couldn't explain the MAME transition, so they tried to blame Dwayne for altering the video on the tape to watch MAME? To match MAME? This did not and could not happen either. Exactly. I mean, that would take I don't know. You would have to be an expert at editing to make it look like that. And that would probably take a long time to do that. I mean, to me, that requires so much work to do something like that. I wasn't forced. When I finished my work, the other tech's findings were correct. That he wasn't using an actual Donkey Kong, cabinet. Which I'm glad, though, that you guys looked into it and I mean, whether you were forced to do it or not, I'm glad you guys actually looked into it. Because you basically proved that he wasn't using a legit arcade cabinet. The objective nature of the MAME evidence was what finally brought the matter to a close. Relatively speaking, however, a number of other items had aroused suspicion over the years. While none of these are as definitive as the MAME evidence, they help illustrate the extent to which this hoax was perpetuated. And of course, there's the screenshot of that video, Robert Childs. After DK record, recent Billy Mitchell goes for Donkey Kong Jr. record. Yeah, that's where they're changing. They're swapping the boards, and even Apollo Legends pointed this out. They didn't actually swap the boards. Like, it looks like they swapped. Like, they took out the Donkey Kong board, and they put the same board back in there. Which, I'm guessing that was probably a MAME board that they put in there. But, I don't know. I wasn't for... Yeah, I read that. I'm sorry. I'm trying to wait... Because the way the comments are being posted, it's messing with me. Fake board swap. Part of the package of public evidence for Billy's 2010 score included a YouTube video, allegedly of his technician friend Rob Childs swapping the circuit boards between games of Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. However, both circuit boards shown are of DK Jr., likely the same board both times, with no original Donkey Kong board present. When this discrepancy was pointed out, Childs replaced the audio with royalty-free music to cover his own narration in the video. Oh my gosh. They're trying to hide something there. Thankfully, the original version was saved and re-uploaded later. Billy's only explanation for this was that the board swap video, along with 2 other videos, were part of a stunt filmed hours later. But using the same machine at the same arcade, it was noted in the dispute that the cabinet, supposedly the same one Billy had just used that day to achieve his Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. records, showed no indication of any direct feed setup. Is that even possible, though? That you could just, play Donkey Kong Jr. on the same cabinet? Or, like, what were they thinking? Like, that's something I want to know. Like, that's why I need to get you on here to explain all these technical terms that they're throwing. Because it's like, I don't understand, like how exactly cabinets work, And I've seen MAME cabinets. MAME cabinets have a computer inside of them. I mean, my uncle has a MAME cabinet at his garage. And inside of it, there's a computer. So that's how you're able to load up MAME cabinets. And you just select through a library of games to play. But what do you think of this, J-Man? J-Man, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm just thinking. What I think about all this is, I don't know. I still think Billy's being a bitch.
I think they're trying to hide something here. Like, there's no reason why they should be doing this at all. Like, if this is supposed to be legit, why would they upload this when it's obvious that they're using a fake board? Yes, you can. DK and DK Jr. use the same wiring. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I'm not smart at this stuff, but I mean, the board that they swapped in that video, though, that did not look like a DK Jr. board at all. It looked like the original Donkey Kong board that they just took out in that video. Unless somehow the circuits for that particular board look the same, which it doesn't. When I looked at the images, like I think the one of the panel things are yellow on DK Jr. and on Donkey Kong it's white. Those things. I'm sorry, I'm not smart at this. I'm not a technician. I mean, I barely knew how to put together my computer. I had to watch a video to do that. So, that's how far I've come in terms of tech. I mean, I can at least put together a gaming PC. But when it comes to arcade stuff, I am completely oblivious. I mean, my uncle is the technician in the family. He used to work with arcades because that, he's electric technician. It was the same board in the video. Exactly. The same board that they took out. Yet they claimed that it was DK Jr., which is a lie. So something ain't right there. No photos. It is often customary for arcade players, after great gaming achievements, to get a photo of themselves with the cabinet showing their score or even just of the score itself. However, no such photos exist at the sites of Billy's achievements. In fact, no photos exist from any bystanders, despite claims that these feats were witnessed by large crowds who cheered and clapped. 2010 in particular was the era of the iPhone, and yet not one person thought to pull out their phone and photograph the occasion, nor to post it to social media. Billy has claimed the existence of various photos, and videos showing the crowds of onlookers, but none have been published as the staged videos were. That's interesting. I mean, and they do make a good point about, we live in a day and age where phones exist, where we could capture any moment. Which, it's fascinating to me. Because back then we had just flash photography and stuff. We didn't have, cell phones that took pictures, and recorded stuff. But it amazes me, though, that nobody ever thought of that. And, and I think it would have helped a lot of these claims, against Billy. With actual photos, if people were there, if people did witness it, someone would have had to taken a photo. But there's no photos of that. I wonder why that is. Yeah, I wonder why that is. Changing stories. In a 2016 interview, Billy claimed his 1.047 million submission was done at a convention. See, J-Man, does that answer your question? He's been to conventions.
That answers my question of whether he's been at conventions, but that doesn't explain if he's been with a con slut.
In 2018, he claimed that same score was done at Rob's Arcade. So this is basically where he changes his stories around, and people started to notice, like, the inconsistencies of, it's like with the Pac-Man story. They claimed it took them 6 hours, and then, it was after 6 hours, and then they changed it to before 6 hours. Like, there's 3 claims, different claims. And and to me, it all boils down to them lying about it, that it's not true. And of that same score in the movie King of Kong, Billy said, "I'm doing it just for the fun of it. When I do an actual score, I'll do it in person." That was before choosing to submit it anyway. Another changing story regards to the presence of then owner of Twin Galaxies, P.D. Boavar, for the 2010 score. In 2010, Billy said multiple times that Boavar was not in attendance. However, in 2018, after Boavar's passing, the story from Billy and his team became that Boavar was there for the 1,000,000-point rollover, as well as to shake Billy's hand at the conclusion of his game. So you see what they did there? They basically said that Boavar was not there, and then now they're saying that he was.
Wow, they can't even keep their stories straight.
No. So they're basically trying to cover up one lie after another.
But
with another.
All they're doing is they're making it obvious they're lying.
Yeah. The Kong Off. Starting in 2011, several top Donkey Kong competitors were brought together to play in a high-score tournament called the Kong Off. Billy Mitchell, who over the years had been a 4-time record holder, was naturally expected to play. However, his Kong Off performances never resembled his tape submissions, either in gameplay style or in scoring potential, raising yet more suspicion in the DK community. And of course, right there, wow. you can look at these scores yourself, and yeah, it's he's not really showing his Kong skills. He's not showing that he's the king of Kong.
All he really has to do is beat the record again, and boom, he's back in the record books, and everything works out.
I mean, he couldn't even
yes,
he couldn't
it
even
was
make
not
it to the
being lazy.
1.2 million score. 1.218. That was Wes Copeland that made that score. That to me though, that's, you know, that says something. That totally says something about Billy being this great Kong player, yet he's not really that good now, is he? Compared to the other players here. Excessive luck. One might ask how the same person who was trailing the pack in live competition was able to produce world records allegedly at the drop of a hat. A careful analysis of Billy's 1.05 million game revealed an astronomical string of luck pertaining to points from hammer smashes, with Billy almost always getting the maximum values possible. The odds of getting his level of luck related to smash points was calculated to be in the 99.7th percentile. That's pretty good. But while a world record will always be a statistical outlier, world records by other top players were found to have middling luck with regards to hammer smashes, with a previous record of Robbie Lakeman's being as low as 21st percentile. Billy's strategy, such as it was, would appear to have been getting as many of these smashes as possible while relying on absurdly lucky yields from these smashes throughout the game. This luck is the kind of feature an emulator could provide, allowing a player to replay a level over and over until the desired outcome is achieved. Yeah, that is possible. I mean, he could have used save states to help him, you know, get the points that he wanted to get. I mean, that is possible. But if that's in competition, that is fucking sleazy. I don't know how the fuck he would have gotten away with that if that's the case. That. But I'm guessing that's from the tape footage, though. It's not and it's not implying the competition. But I mean, that to me is just like the fact that you would use a save state just because you can't get the result that you want because of skill. That says something right there. It shows that he sucks at the game. That's what it tells me. It tells me he's not that good. I mean, if you have to rely on save states, that tells me you're not good at all. Suspicious gameplay. In addition to the absurd luck, Billy's tapes also exhibited suspicious strategies and gameplay, indicating a likely reliance on save state use. See, like I said, he must suck at the game. I mean, why would someone need to use save states if they didn't suck? In some cases, deaths were needlessly risked deep into a world record run, such as by jumping into an approaching fireball. In other cases, strategies were employed with normally risk backfiring either by death or by loss of points, nullifying the strategy's gains, but which rarely actually backfired. Normally, the climb to the fifth girder directly under Kong, see Danger Zone, is precarious and requires careful timing. Due to Kong's tendency to throw wild barrels while the player is on a ladder, however, Billy takes the moments casually with these needless risks, again, never backfiring. As with the luck, these all point to the ability to replay levels at will, nullifying the dangers honest competitors must account for. Yeah, I mean, that, and they're not lying on that with the fifth girder. It is a fucking bitch. It can be a fucking bitch if you don't know what you're doing. If it's your first time playing Donkey Kong, it's gonna throw you off, and one simple mistake, you will mess up. So it does take a lot of precision. watching Donkey Kong's movements kind of does help a little bit, but it's that timing. That timing will always throw you off. But that could be the case. He could be using save states and using, you know, the, like, there's ways you can edit out, you know, the skips, you know. And that's probably how he was able to tamper with the tapes, like, to edit it, you know, to make you think that there was no, you know, skips in the footage or anything like that. Verified without review. Billy Mitchell's longtime connections to Twin Galaxies and its founder Walter Day afforded him privileged access to score adjudication. In 2004, Billy submitted a tape of 1.014 million, also a purported direct feed, to counter a Steve's submission of 1.006 million. Before the score had been verified, while speaking to a crowd at a New York City event in his capacity as an affiliate of TG, Billy announced that his was the new world record and the first score of over 1 million. The submission was later withdrawn, and the whereabouts of the tape are unknown. In 2006, Steve's 1.049 million, seen at the end of King of Kong, was subjected to scrutiny due to a break in continuity between the gameplay and the filming of the circuit boards. That's one of the things that points out, like, you know, that it was heavily edited. Like, and that sort of brings me to my point about, you know, like, how much of these scores on Twin Galaxies is legit. And I would think that, you know, it would be smart for Twin Galaxies to just, you know, wipe the slate clean and only verify the scores that have been verified already, that have actual proof. Whereas Billy's accepted tape, of course, showed no peripherals whatsoever. Lastly, Billy's 1.062 million was accepted by a vote among TG staff, none of whom had actually watched the submission tape. Oh, boy. More of the verification of that score and the referees involved below. So, sounds to me that, you know, a lot of people didn't even take into consideration that Billy could possibly be cheating. And they didn't want to say anything because, you know, he's an affiliate. And so they're basically riding the coattail of his fame. You know, and I mean, this was the old Twin Galaxy, by the way. This was before they were bought out. Before all this shit happened. But it sounded to me that they were trying to sweep all this under the rug. That this has been going on for decades. But, of course, I mean, you got fucking Walter Day, who is the founder and a close friend to Billy. Like, there's no reason to not believe that Walter had something to do with any of this. There's no reason you could convince me that Walter didn't have anything to do with tampering with Billy's scores and stuff. Like, you can't. He had something to do with it. Alright, the magazine. A complete issue of Video Game Collector magazines were available at the Big Bang event in 2010, where Billy's two new records on Donkey Kong and Donkey Kong Jr. were announced. This magazine featured the new records extensively, including a dedicated cover. Inside was an interview with Billy, alluding to a major feat he had achieved last week to be announced at Otamawa. The problem is, allegedly, those scores were literally achieved last week. The alleged date of the Boomers score was July the 30th, while the date of the announcement in Otamawa, complete with the magazine, was Saturday, August the 7th. Even if the achievement was the day before Billy spoke in that interview, that's incredibly short turnaround on laying out and printing a professional magazine. The magazine announcement was also authorized solely by Billy, with TG officials having yet to weigh in on its verification status. That is quite fascinating to learn, honestly, because it sounds to me that Billy wanted to he wanted to control everything, from the sounds of it. And that, with TG not verifying everything, not looking into this, it makes them look really bad. That's the thing. It makes them look really bad for not realizing this. Just because he sets those scores now doesn't mean he could have back then. I'm not saying he did or didn't. I'm saying, I think that Walter, did, in fact, have a role in this. I think that somehow he is the one that's putting in all those scores for Billy. Either him or it's all Billy that's doing it. But, I mean, to me, it's still scammy. It's still scummy. Scummy thing to do. Especially when you have players that are trying their damnedest. Players that deserve to get recognition. Instead, you have fucking Billy here stealing the spotlight from them. Stealing it right from underneath them. Players that deserve that achievement, that deserve to be on that list. But yeah, it's messed up. It's really messed up. Why he has to be so egotistical. I mean, it's just a fucking score in a video game, people. But, I mean, that's the only thing that Billy has left in his life. I mean, that's what he's known for. If you were to ask some random person on the street who Billy Mitchell was, they would have no clue. So, that should tell you something. He needs this. And he's going to do everything he can to make, Twin Galaxies and Guinness World Records look really bad. Yet, what he doesn't realize is he's pissing off the gaming community. Because he won't accept the fact that he cheated, that his scores are not legit, and, that it's asinine. I find this whole entire lawsuit to be asinine. When there's evidence, all this evidence stacked against him. And all Billy could have done was just apologize. He could have apologized. And, admit his mistake, which was cheating. He shouldn't have cheated for all these years. But, of course, he has to be Billy. Which, by the way,
Oh, Billy.
I have to play that clip. I'm sorry. Valid questions Before we get to Billy's rebuttals and deflections, let's address a few legitimate questions a curious bystander might have about this case. Okay, here we go. Why are some of the transition screens inconclusive? One might wonder if Billy's tapes originated from MAME. Shouldn't it all the screen transitions be from MAME? There are actually many reasons why a given screen transition would be inconclusive. First of all, the different pieces of equipment are not always operating at the same frequency. How many times they act per second, resulting in potentially lost frames. Some formats and platforms, including YouTube, employ video compression which can blend different frames together in unique ways. And yeah, that is true. YouTube fucking decompresses the shit out of a lot of these videos. But, I mean, it depends on the format as well. If you're using AVI or MP4, like, you gotta consider that as well. What format was the video converted in? If it was NTSC, then that obviously would either be an AVI file or an MP4 file. Which, MP4, it doesn't compress that much. But AVI, it compresses a lot. It really does. Because that's how I used to upload all my videos. With AVI, my original videos from back in the day. Because I used Windows Movie Maker like a idiot. But yeah, YouTube does compress videos like that, but that I don't think that really has anything to do with why the video output is like that. You know, why it's like MAME. Because conversion, all it does is it reduces the quality. Because that's really all compression does. It affects the quality of the video. It doesn't actually change anything. It doesn't add any transitions or anything like that. All it does is just, it affects the quality of the video. Another effect to be wary of is called rolling shutter, where pieces of different frames are captured together in one sweep of the camera. Rolling shutter is introduced anytime an external camera is aimed at a television or monitor, as is the case for early leaked copies of Billy's tapes available on YouTube. While many of the transitions on Billy's tapes are inconclusive due to these distortions, many others are precisely consistent with identified MAME screens, and none are indicative of arcade origin. Well, I mean, if you looked at the transitions, you know, the way it is, like, even Carlos mentioned this himself, none of the cabinets load up like MAME does. No cabinet would load up like that. Unless you're using a computer. Unless it is an actual main cabinet. That would be the only way it loads up like that. Isn't MAME legal? For many years, emulators like MAME have been legal in competition. Some score tracking organizations like Twin Galaxies have separate leaderboards for emulation, while Donkey Kong Forum lists MAME scores and arcade scores together. The difference is largely a matter of preference, with some players opting for the purity of original hardware. What aren't a matter of preference, however, are the strict protocols involved in verifying emulator scores due to the myriad ways emulators can be manipulated. Which that is true. You can basically use tool-assisted emulators. You can use tool-assisted emulators to mess around with the footage or mess around with the game. That is possible. Only certain versions of MAME are allowed, and input files must be sent as part of the evidence package. One cannot simply move Billy's scores over to the MAME leaderboard as some of his defenders have suggested. There is no resolving or verifying a score achieved via playback on an unknown version of MAME, with many red flags and no supporting evidence, which the submitter insists was never done on MAME in the first place. I think if Billy hadn't lied about using MAME, I don't think this would have been an issue at all, to be quite honest with you guys. I think the fact that he lied, that's why a lot of people are upset with him. I don't think it really has much to do with the fact that he's using MAME. But, that he lied, saying that it's the original arcade when it's not.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've used cheat codes in various video games. Okay? And I don't give a shit if he's cheated. What I care about is that he lied to get where he is.
I mean, technically, a lot of people would say that's not cheating if you're using an emulator. But it's clear to me, like, using save states, that right there is cheating to me. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people would agree with me on this. Using save states is cheating. And that's what they were talking about in this, manipulating the gameplay footage. Using save states, which you can edit the footage without putting it into a video editor. You can edit it a specific way, and, the video will skip to that part. And you won't even notice it. You won't even notice he used a save state. That is something that, even Apollo Legends pointed that out, that the footage, there was spliced. It was all spliced together. And it just, it didn't make any sense. Like, if he was playing this on original hardware, there's no way of using save states. And he knew that. So he used MAME, where you can use save states. And that's how he was able to get the scores that he was able to get. That's the only possible way. Alright. If the dispute was about the 2010 score, why did they focus on the other scores instead? The Twin Galaxies dispute process, which rolled out in July 2017, allowed members with high credibility ratings to dispute scores in the database. However, only a player's current best score were eligible to be disputed. This is why the entirety of the dispute was lodged under Billy's top recorded score of 1.062 million. Jeremy Young opened the dispute in August of 2017 on the basis that the board swap video allegedly authenticating the top score was faked. The MAME evidence pertaining to all three scores would later be posted in the same thread. Twin Galaxies has maintained a policy of requiring an exceptional standard of proof, essentially to the point of certitude, before removing any previously verified score. The only remaining artifacts from Billy's 2010 score were brief clips filmed at his public exhibition of the Big Bang event. While those did show evidence of MAME origin, Twin Galaxies decided those clips alone were not sufficient. However, the entire submission tapes of Billy's other two scores were available, and TG was able to rule conclusively that those were fraudulent, resulting in the removal of all of Billy's scores. So that's how that works. Why did they remove all of Billy's scores, even Pac-Man? When it comes to striking cheaters from any scoreboard, there are two schools of thought. One approach is to try to remove only the bogus scores while preserving any valid ones for the historical record. For instance, when Donkey Kong Form removed Billy's cheated scores, they reverted his best score to 933,900, which was achieved live at Midwest Gaming Classic in 2004. So that was his only legit score. That's kind of sad. Donkey Kong Form is organized by experts in the Donkey Kong arcade franchise, and they felt confident in that the 2004 score was historically legitimate. The other approach taken by many leaderboards is to simply remove all of a cheater's scores entirely. This achieves a few things. It reduces the number of bogus scores from known liars that are allowed to stand simply because there's not enough proof against those particular scores. It saves the moderators time and energy trying to tease apart which of a cheater's runs are valid and which are not, and it serves as a penalty to discourage cheating. The current Twin Galaxies has for years had a policy that deliberate cheating warrants a lifetime ban, and Billy Mitchell has not been the only player to see all their scores removed on the basis of cheating. While striking potential valid runs can be considered anti-historical in a sense, the same could be said of banning a player from future submissions. A line simply has to be drawn somewhere for the sake of scoreboard integrity, lest a cheater continue to submit bogus runs in the hope some of them cannot be proven illegitimate. And in drawing such a line, there is no reason to give proven cheaters the benefit of the doubt. Trust is critical, and if someone has shown themselves incapable or capable of falsifying a submission without the offender's contrition, there is no reason to believe that any of their other submissions, also based on trust, are not also falsified. While Twin Galaxies administration did not feel comfortable outright labeling Billy Mitchell a cheater for legal reasons, if nothing else, their actions spoke louder than words. In removing all of Billy's scores, Twin Galaxies indicated their conclusion that the matter of falsified evidence was simply an accident or mistake, but a willful attempt by Billy Mitchell to deceive adjudicators, i.e. cheating. Moral of the story, if you don't want your scores removed, don't cheat. And yeah, he would be considered a cheater. That's what a cheater is. It's someone who cheats. There's nothing illegal about it. I mean, the whole legal thing, I don't think they really have anything to worry about that if they did refer to him as a cheater.
Cheater, pumpkin.
Cheater. Let's see what the chat has to say. Nope, there were life rights contracts to the subject matter worth a lot of money, not just a game score. Steve should have been playing Tim, not Billy, at the start. Billy needs to give the money back. If I rob a bank and apologize, do I still get to keep the money? I get what you're saying. I do. I definitely understand what you're saying. But I'm saying, like, Billy should just move on. Honestly, I mean, I think he should pay back the money. And I mean, here's the thing though. I don't think giving back the money is going to, like, I don't think it's going to make people not upset at him, because a lot of people might look at it the wrong way as, oh, he's trying to save face, or, you know, this guy is just doing this so that way, you know, he can protect his legacy or something like that, or he's trying to protect his integrity. But I mean that's from, you know, my own personal experience, which I'm not gonna get into. But like, apologizing, you're right, you know, in some cases, you know, apologizing doesn't help matters at all. And it's sometimes best to let your actions speak louder than words. But I mean, I think that what Billy needs to do is just accept the fact that he fucked up and should try to find ways to better himself, to make it right with the community, that he, the trust of the community is integral. If you don't have that trust, then no one's going to believe a word you say. So, I mean, he could give the money back, but I don't think people would trust him at all. I think that bridge of trust has been burnt when it comes to Billy. And plus, anyone could say, "Oh, I gave the money back." He could argue that, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's true. But I agree with you. Steve should be playing against him, not Billy, because Billy wasn't the score that he was going for. He wasn't going for Billy's score. He was going for Tim's score. He was trying to beat Tim's score. You're right on that. I mean, I looked at some of the footage that they showed of that. It's crazy. All this is crazy. Of course, there's rebuttals. As these things go, there were many attempts to shift the discussion into something other than a look at the objective evidence, or to get people to buy into substantiated claims. Note, the following bullet point items are paraphrases and not direct quotes. There were witnesses, which, to me, like, just the fact that, there were witnesses, that doesn't mean anything. Like, I could say, my cousin's brother's former roommate saw me do this. And that doesn't validate anything. You can have 100 people watching you.
Witnesses mean jack shit in this day and age.
But they said in King of Kong, Billy was roasted for saying repeatedly that one should play live in front of witnesses and then submitting a tape. With the movie out and the expectation that by his own words, why did I say words? Words, he should have witnesses for his scores. His next submission of 1.05 million featured witnesses in one room watching a direct feed, allegedly hooked up to Billy's DK cabinet in the other room. These witnesses could have no way of verifying if what they were watching was his actual live gameplay, with the actual submission tape having been proven fraudulent. It would have seemed this scenario was tailor-made to create the illusion of witnesses where no valid witnesses existed. For the 1.062 million score, Billy and his colleagues simply claimed witnesses were there with no evidence. And that's a good point. What's if he recorded that footage, days before the event? Like, how would anyone really know that's live gameplay footage that he's playing? Like, you there's no way. Unless, you're really a smart person, which most people aren't smart. I'm not smart. But I mean, that is a possibility that he could have just recorded the footage and showed it to people. So, really, yeah, witnesses don't mean anything. Especially when it comes to stuff like this. It was verified by a referee. Yeah. And that would be the same case as a witness. And who knows, maybe the referee had something to do with it, too. The submission rules were a bit murkier under previous iterations of Twin Galaxies. The website only offered advice on how to submit scores by videotape. However, allowances were granted to certified TG referees to educate scores at live events, under the assumption that such events would be legitimate. Billy's 1.0147 million was verified by a video. However, his later 1.05 million score listed the verification method as referee. The lone referee was Todd Rogers. Rogers, along with his girlfriend, Morning Dove Mahoney. What a name. Morning Dove Mahoney. Oh my god. Oh my god. Why isn't that the name of a song? Morning Dove Mahoney. You watched your man cheat the way he did, but you didn't do nothing in the end. Would go on to act as referee for Billy's 1.062 million score in 2010. This deviation of adjudication processes did not sit well with the top TG staff in 2010, who wanted Billy's score to be subjected to the same review process as his competitors. However, after threats from Billy, as reported by multiple parties, the score was accepted by a secret ballot. While Todd used to be an official Twin Galaxies referee, his credibility has since fallen on hard times. In 2017, many of his former records were found to be either highly implausible or outright impossible, with the most famous being his claim of a time of 5.51 seconds on Dragster. Days before the MAME evidence package was published in this case, all of Todd's scores were removed from Twin Galaxies and Guinness on the basis that he had fraudulently self-entered scores. In other words, Todd lied for years about video game achievements. As for Morning Dove, who was briefly seen avoiding the camera in one of the staged videos, she has yet to say anything publicly on the matter since the MAME evidence was published. Either way, the permanent objective evidence supersedes the word of partisan witnesses. Yeah, and that's the way it should be. It makes no difference whether it's a referee or a witness. You can't really trust their word. Especially someone like Todd Rogers. The board was certified by Nintendo. For his 2007 score, Billy claims to have mailed the circuit board to Nintendo to have it verified by a technician, with arrangements to have it looked in place at the venue by a neutral third party. However, these claims, along with associated evidence like shipping receipts, are irrelevant. There is ultimately no proof that the board sent out was the same one used to produce the videotape. What do we know is that the video submitted could not have originated from a legitimate board, whether verified by a Nintendo technician or not. Exactly. It doesn't really matter if it was like that or not. What matters is what's on the tape. It's the tail of the tape. And yeah, there's no evidence that would suggest that Nintendo would authenticate it. There's no evidence of that. So, yeah. Twin Galaxies said it wasn't MAME. You occasionally hear this from some of Billy's supporters, but this is a misrepresentation. Twin Galaxies did not say the tapes weren't MAME. They said they couldn't prove it was MAME, but they could prove the tapes did not originate from original arcade hardware per the submission rules. What's more, the reason TG said they weren't comfortable declaring the tapes were MAME was because they would have to rule out other emulators or even the possibility that the video was created wholesale by video effects software. Lost on Billy's supporters is that there was a certain dry humor to that remark by TG, given that neither of those would exonerate Billy. Regardless, MAME is far and away the most likely tool one could have used, and is an exact match for the evidence we have, although on a fundamental level, the actual weapon is not as important as the crime itself. But yeah, you can clearly see transition screens here. MAME 0.115 and below, default transition screen, May 2007 and earlier. And of course, you have MAME 0116 to 01121 default transition screen, June 2007 to November 2007. So, the tail's in the tape. He used MAME. I mean, that's the most likely software he could have used. And honestly, it's the most popular, so that, you couldn't rule that out at all. When it comes to arcade emulators, what emulator do you usually think of? Right off the top of your head. You would think of MAME, right?
For me, I wouldn't think of MAME. I'd think of Visual Boy Advance.
But we're talking about arcades. We're not talking about emulators. We're talking about arcade emulators specifically.
Then MAME.
Yeah, exactly. The version of MAME they said I used didn't exist yet. It is true there was a flaw in the original MAME evidence presentation with regards to the girder finger screen seen in Billy's gameplay. At the default settings, the earlier versions of MAME available during Billy's earlier submissions show a slightly different transitional screen, one with 3 girders similar to the girder finger screen, but without that specific artifact. This has been presented by Billy himself as proof that his gameplay with the girder finger could not have come from MAME. Of course, his gameplay still does not resemble authentic hardware output either way. Regardless, more investigation was done as part of the dispute, and versions of MAME going back to 2001 were shown to exhibit the girder finger under the correct settings. Specifically, the required changing the MAME refresh rate to match arcade, which one would likely do anyway if one was looking to pass MAME play off as arcade. Billy's tapes do indeed match earlier versions of MAME, and they still do not match original arcade. So yeah, he didn't even have it in the correct settings. Like, if you wanted to hide the fact that you were using MAME, you should have just fucking used the correct settings to make it look like you're using arcade hardware. You could have done that, Billy. The converter must have made the signal look like MAME. As even Carlos has pointed out, that is not even possible. By the way, that's not even possible. And I think we can rule that out, the converter thing. Because the converter, all it does is it transfers video signals. That's all it does. It doesn't affect transitions. It doesn't affect anything else. That's all converters do. This was an early argument put forward by Billy's tech, Rob Childs. The idea is that the direct feed equipment itself somehow altered the signal composition to give it MAME signatures that weren't present in the original. While this sort of thing is the domain of the experts, this explanation was roundly rejected by experts not affiliated with Billy. Also, as the dispute ran its course, no method was ever shown to replicate the alleged phenomenon. Despite multiple parties using the same equipment, Childs claimed to have used to set up Billy's direct feeds. This argument was later abandoned by Billy and his colleagues in favor of the following more convenient explanation. Those aren't my real tapes. They're running out of excuses. Those aren't my real tapes. Then why did you submit them if they're not your real tapes, you fucking idiot? Billy claims the tapes that were examined in the dispute, which are undeniable MAME, were not his actual submission tapes. This is unsubstantiated claim coming from the accused and his colleagues. On the other hand, Twin Galaxies administration claimed to have internal emails and documentation certifying those exact tapes as the same ones used to verify Billy's 2005 and 2007 scores at that time. As for who to believe, see the next item. What do you guys think? What do you think, J-Man?
Still, I don't know what to make of Billy. I still think he's trying way too hard to defend his image, when in reality, he's already lost it.
And to me, it seems like, it's one lie after another. Like, he tried to say, oh, it's the converter, or, it's not my tapes, or it's one lie after another, and they've all been debunked. So he's running out of lies, people. He's running out of lies.
Billy, just stop lying, apologize, and move on.
I don't think that's gonna do him any good. Because he has a reputation to keep, man. Come on, he has to keep his reputation. That's all he has to live for. Oh, Billy.
Yeah, that reputation's dying fast.
Oh, Billy.
Oh, Billy.
Hang on. Oh, Billy. Oh, Billy. Okay. Dwayne Richards said in 2009 he would make fake tapes to frame me. By the way, this is recriminations. That with the evidence laid out and all substantive rebuttals addressed, the fact of Billy's guilt has therefore been proven. Or heretofore have been proven. However, rather than take responsibility for the actions, Billy and his colleagues set up others to take the blame instead. That's another behavior you'll notice of Billy. He wants to blame other people. He blamed Dwayne Richard. Dwayne Richard said in 2009 he would make fake tapes to frame me. To be clear, what Dwayne said, which we even listened to the call between Apollo Legend and Dwayne. Dwayne said was that he was interested in making fake direct feed videos using MAME to see if TG referees were apt enough to tell the difference. Both parties stipulated this happened in 2009. However, long buried in the MTV website, 2006 video interview with Robert. I'm not even going to try that. Robert, what's-his-face, was recently rediscovered, showing clips of Billy's 2005 submission, the one seen in King of Kong. The video observed in the interview is the exact same tape used to verify Billy's score 1 month earlier, which he recalls receiving from Billy himself. The clips in the interview are identical to the tape examined in the dispute of show many of the same markings of MAME. By Billy's and his colleagues' own admission, Dwayne did not speak of his desire to pull any ruse with MAME till 2009, years after Billy had already successfully passed MAME play off as arcade. Huh. Really? So you're basically trying to say that Dwayne he faked these tapes for you? He like they're trying so damn hard to put the blame on Dwayne, trying to ruin his reputation. And if you guys watched Dwayne's documentary, The King of Cons, which, by the way, it's up on YouTube, I highly recommend you guys to watch it. He basically pointed out a lot of things, and he also had some people that were there at the that had a part in that King of Kong documentary. Some players were there, you know. And it's just, it fascinates me. It just fascinates me. Like, you would go out of your way to lie on somebody else just because you got caught in a lie. And, you know, I don't know if I have any respect for you, Billy. Because you sure as hell don't have any respect for anyone. Not even your fellow competitors. Instead, you want to throw them under the bus. You want to say that they are the ones who did this. No, Billy, it's your fault. You did this. You did all this. It's time to own up. Man up. Jace Hall did all this for money. As part of his Road to Redemption tour, Billy did a presentation at Southern Fried Gaming Expo in June of last year, needing to address the question of why Twin Galaxies would rule against him if he's supposedly innocent. Billy laid the blame for that strictly at the feet of Jace Hall, the current CEO of Twin Galaxies. Unlike previous iterations of Twin Galaxies, Jace's administration has put a priority on transparency and accountability, requiring things like submission evidence be public. The emphasis carried through to the new score disputes system, which required merely that evidence be posted to the public dispute thread to be considered. The need to publish evidence in the proper venue was dismissed by Billy as if it were some kind of unreasonable or exceptional burden. Billy went on to describe the increased number of website clicks related to the ongoing dispute, suggesting Jay saw the entire venture as a way to generate money at Billy's expense. Noteworthy is that clicks do not necessarily equate to money, and that traffic directly to the dispute thread generated no ad revenue because ads did not load on the dispute page at the time of the active dispute. Nevertheless, the dispute was handled according to the established rules. Jace Hall and Twin Galaxies simply allowed the dispute to occur and ruled according to the evidence. The dispute would have generated many fewer clicks for Twin Galaxies if Billy had simply confessed straight away. So, he looks, to me, it just seems like, you know, I mean, they made the right call to take into account the evidence. I mean, they could have easily just swept all this under the rug. They could have. But they didn't. And I take my hat off to you guys over at Twin Galaxies. There. You saw my bald head. That's what you get. But, like, yeah. I mean, it's obvious he's trying to use this as a publicity stunt. He's trying to do this to gain as much attention as possible. There's no denying it whatsoever. He has to keep his ego going. You can't just blame me. You have to blame the technicians and distributors too. The claim is that if the scores are faked, then everyone tangentially related to these events must have been in on the misdeed and must share the blame with Billy. In reality, while some small number of people were certainly in on it with Billy, Most of those involved in the logistics. The logistics likely trusted Billy to be honest. A DK cabinet supplier would have no way of knowing if Billy's submission tape came from his cabinet or if Billy created it through other means. As happens, Billy throws other innocent people in the way of accusations. Yeah, he's basically playing the blame game at this point. I mean, it's obviously the technician's fault. It's not Billy's fault. Or it's the distributor's fault. Because Billy ain't someone who takes responsibility for his actions. Especially when you get called out for something. He ain't ever going to admit he's wrong. And, you know, that makes him an awful human being. He's a scumbag. He's a human being that doesn't want to better himself. I mean, he could easily get people to respect him a little bit if he just admitted that he was wrong. And just take the blame, just take the ridicule, and just accept it. You cheated. That's all you have to do. And also give back the money. The fake board swap was Rob's fault. This one's amusing. Billy threw his own friend Rob Childs under the bus for the obviously fake board swap video. Despite Billy's own participation in it, and the fact that it was presented for years as genuine, Billy claims it was a stunt to build up Rob's YouTube channel. Of course, one may wonder if they would have been so forthcoming in 2018 about the video's inauthenticity had they actually used the correct circuit boards. So yeah, he's throwing his own friend under the bus now. That's really scummy. Gotta admit, that's pretty scummy. You see, Rob, hopefully you're watching this, Rob. If you are, please respond to me. Dude, Billy doesn't give a shit about you at all. He would rather see you die in Minecraft than to help you. He doesn't care. He would rather watch you in misery than to actually take responsibilities for his own actions. And to me, that's not a friend that's worth having. And if you ever want to come on here and, you know, explain yourself, I'm open to it. I have my email in my business inquiries in my channel description. You can contact me that way. I'd be all for an interview with you. We can talk about all of this if you want to. I'm leaving it up to you. Because to me, Billy wants to do nothing more than throw you under the bus. And that's not a true friend. Deflections and distractions. Moving well beyond the boundaries of reasonable discourse, there were many attempts to Billy Mitchell and his defenders to mischaracterize events and to reframe the matter as something else entirely. My score wasn't even 10th place when they challenged it. Billy presents this in a way to suggest his accusers are petty, that they choose to go after him despite his relatively lower standing on the scoreboard at the time. First, this does nothing to actually address the evidence, which provides him a cheater. Second, it's proper to remove any cheater from the scoreboard regardless of their standing. Third, as for gaming history, this resolved a legitimate question of who to verify as the first 1 million point player on Donkey Kong, even if that score has since been surpassed. Billy himself prompted each of these as a major achievement in their day. The historical significance was likely why these scores were fabricated in the first place. Yeah, because back in the day, you had no cameras. Like, I mean, you had camcorders, but they're like $1,000 and no one could afford them. So it was easy for someone to just say, hey, I got the highest score in Donkey Kong. Can't prove it. Can't prove it. Like, that's how easy it was. Because there was no definitive way to prove or disprove that that was the case. Unless you had a referee there, or unless you had witnesses there. Which, like I said, witnesses don't mean anything. But you would think that, there would be at least photos. But no one ever thought of taking photos? That's weird. I mean, and you see all these photos of Billy, with the president of Namco and, all these other companies. Yet...
I mean, all these photos just feel like he's giving his ego just one last rub. One last rub!
No,
Come on, just one last rub!
To me, it seems like he cares more about marketing himself than just the scores. That's what it feels like to me. I don't think the scores really matter to him. I don't think having the highest score really matters to him. I think he's afraid of losing all that money. That drawing power.
Well, then he should get off his ass and actually try to try to become the high scorer again.
Well, regardless, I mean, there's no way now because his reputation's tarnished.
Oh yeah.
They moved the goalposts, so I was never going to win. This was a claim by Billy during his SFGE panel. The goalposts in Twin Galaxies dispute were never moved, although some elements of the technical analysis were explored and later abandoned. For instance, TG staff were unable to produce a color signal using the 2-bit score converter until a method was later discovered using a different VCR. This was still a standard part of evidence-based investigation. Not every hypothesis will be proven valid. However, the real focus of the dispute never changed. The goal was always to see if genuine arcade hardware could be used to produce the MAME screens seen on Billy's tape, whether through the converter they claimed to have used or through any means. No such method was ever found by anyone. Going back to the converter argument, converters don't do that. I mean, most of the converters I've used, I mean, even if it was a 2-bit score, it's basically video transfer. That's it. It transfers the signal. It doesn't tamper with the sprites or anything. It doesn't change anything. So, yeah. This stack of secret papers will exonerate me. And look at that. There's Billy showing showing those papers. Look at him. He's like, these will prove I'm innocent.
I have a feeling that he is treating this like a game.
Yeah. At his SFGE presentation, Billy waved around a stack of papers, claiming it to indicate everything from proof people were out to slander Steve to evidence that his tapes had been stolen, to proof that people planned to frame him starting in 2009, to documentation of harassment against himself and his family. Obviously, harassment is not acceptable, and his accounts of that are not seriously being questioned. He is under no obligation to publish those items. However, harassing emails do nothing to answer the question behind the dispute. Did Billy Mitchell cheat? In fact, none of the other material cited affects the preponderance of the evidence against him outlined above. More to the point, the purpose of the show was to get people who want to believe Billy to buy into the idea that exonerating evidence exists. Aside from flashing brief glimpses toward the camera, none of this allegedly exculpatory evidence has been published. This was after Billy, in the immediate aftermath of the TG verdict, had assured the public everything will be transparent, everything will be available. I wish I had it in my hands right now. I wish I could hand it to you. Had this evidence actually cleared Billy's name, it certainly would have been published before the verdict, resulting in a score's permanent removal. Yet, here we are a year later, and it still has yet to be shared. If Billy wishes to actually publish evidence to support his case, that evidence can be considered at that time. And that is true. He should have provided that evidence while they were doing the investigation. Yet he decides to wait until after the investigation, after they made their verdict, to finally come out with evidence. Yeah. No one's gonna believe you.
I mean, it's just really dumb to hold off on evidence during an investigation. It's pretty much an obstruction of justice.
Yeah. Exactly. And it just, to me, it comes off as him being an incompetent buffoon. Yeah, I called you incompetent and a buffoon. Because that's the way you're acting.
Which you are, fake Jesus.
Antichrist. But Billy just redid those scores, so he's proven he's legit. Yeah, he did a Twitch stream, by the way. Yeah, Billy, you definitely proved you're legit, but that doesn't change anything at all.
No, but it only works if he actually does it try to, if he just apologizes, really.
Even then, though, like I said, his credibility is shot, you know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's not going to be allowed in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Yeah, because there's no way, like, who is he gonna publish it to? There's Twin Galaxies banned him. He can't post it. I mean, it's a good feat, no joke. 1,000,000 so points, good feat, but it means nothing, Billy. You can't publish it on Twin Galaxies. You can't publish it in the Guinness World Records because they banned you. So
yeah, you may have proved you're legit, but at what cost?
exactly. Yeah, they basically talk about his Twitch stream. I'm trying to get to the end of this because I'm getting tired. When I score 1,000,000, they have nothing to say. There are a lot of silly variations on this theme. The idea is that Billy's critics vanish into thin air when forced to acknowledge inconvenient circumstances that don't fit their narrative, only to remerge later as if nothing ever happened. In truth, much was said at the time of Billy's 1 million scores on Twitch and why they bore no relevance to the question of his fraudulent scores a decade earlier. It is Billy who fails to address key pieces of evidence as they emerge, such as the recent discovery of the blank interview described above. I can't even pronounce the last name. Yeah. I mean, where it all boils down, it means nothing to the evidence. It like, you can say you're the king of Donkey Kong all you want. You can say, yes, I am legit all you want. You can show the scores from your Twitch stream all you want. But that does not prove that you didn't cheat. That doesn't prove that you didn't cheat at all.
Nope. If anything, he just shouldn't have used MAME.
And then someone says, I've known Billy for 30 years. He looked me in the eye and swore to me he didn't cheat. And yeah, I like that response. Good for you. The evidence says he did. Oh, that's a way to put it.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You do realize that that means nothing. It just means he's really good at lying.
Yeah, and I've known friggin' that'd be like me saying I've known so and so for 40 years. So, he didn't rape that girl, even though there's evidence that he did. But I'm saying he didn't. Come on. Billy. Come on. They are just whiny crybabies, keyboard warriors, jealous haters. That's the typical arguments that a lot of people say to their detractors, to people that disagree with them. Oh, you're crybabies, you're keyboard warriors, you're just jealous haters.
Well, wait a minute. Did he just call us SJWs?
No, keyboard warriors. No, that's not the same thing as social justice warriors. Keyboard warriors is basically people that are looking to start a conflict, people that want to stir up drama. That's what he's talking about. You're just a bunch of keyboard warriors. People that just want to spread hate. Poor Billy. Poor Billy. I feel so bad for you, Billy.
Yeah, I feel so bad for him as well. Let me play the world's smallest violin for him.
But yeah, it's like he wants us to feel bad for him because of all the hate he's getting. And here's the thing, people. We all make mistakes. We're human beings. And I'm not saying, we should completely cancel this guy. Because, like I said, I hate cancel culture. I hate it, period. But cancel culture has nothing to do with this. At all. It has nothing to do with this. This is basically trying to call out someone for just lying. And, it wouldn't be a problem if he just admitted, yes, I used MAME, and I'm sorry for lying. Or if he just submitted the video like back then and said, yeah, I used MAME for this. But he had to, he had to have thought this. He didn't really think this through. He didn't at all. He thought he could lie, get away with it. He could manipulate people and just make money off of it. That's what he's been doing for over 30 years.
And now he's paying the price.
Yep. Karma. I mean, I always say this. Karma is a bitch.
Yep.
And I believe in karma. I do. As people should believe in karma. In conclusion. Okay, guys. This is the conclusion here. We have established the means. We have established the motive. We have established the opportunity. We have an actual mountain of circumstantial evidence indicating intent to deceive, and most importantly, we have objective scientific evidence proving that such a deception was indeed carried out. While Billy was involved in various media promoting Donkey Kong competition to the world, he turned around and leached off that competition, stealing other people's rightful glory for years. The only things that have kept this from being a consensus open and shut case are, consensus open and shut case, are Billy's assertive denials and the decision by some to ignore the evidence and believe Billy's word. Don't fall for con artists. You are better than that. TLDR, Billy's tapes were MAME, and yes, they were his real tapes. Billy Mitchell is a cheater and a liar. He will tell you he's not, but that is what a cheating liar would say. So, yeah, that's all really everyone needs to know. I mean, it's clear from the evidence. It's clear from his actions and even his own behavior that Billy is guilty. And yeah, I have a feeling he's never going to admit that he's wrong and that he's going to keep this thing going because that gives him more attention. And I have a feeling that Billy may take down this video, because, I'm criticizing him.
All I've got to say is try it, bitch.
Try it. I hope you try. I really do. I hope you honestly try to take down this video, Billy, because I will upload it somewhere else. I mean, I'm not afraid to lose this YouTube channel at all. This means nothing to me. I just do this for fun. I mean, I'm not making any money from, YouTube or anything. I do this for entertainment. And I can't stand people like you. I really can't. I mean, I will admit something to you all. Right here and right now. I used to be in Billy's shoes. I've made mistakes. I've scammed people. I've hurt people. And I feel ashamed of myself for doing that. I really do. And I'm doing the best that I can to better myself, to show you, and to show myself mainly. Show myself that I'm capable of being better. And you can judge me all you want. You can judge, my actions all you want. For those of you who know. You can judge me all you want. But at least I'm nothing like this guy. This guy will never admit to his own mistakes. He will never apologize. He won't ever try to better himself. And Billy, if you are watching this, if you are, I honestly do hope you do watch this to the end. Billy, you are not perfect. You are not this untouchable human being. You're not a god. You're just a public figure. But you're also a human being. You make mistakes, and the right thing to do would be to own up to them. Do what is right. Try to make things right. That's really all I can say. But what do I know? I mean, what do I know? I'm not a public figure. I'm not in your shoes. But I've been in the same situation you've been. Just take this advice from me. So, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream. And I want to thank each and every single one of you for tuning in tonight. It's been so much fun, going through this. And, I am grateful. I am truly grateful for those that have supported me, who have been there for me. People who engaged with me tonight. I'm very supportive for that. I feel very happy for that. I'm happy to be able to discuss this with you all. But I just hope that, I just hope that people realize that, we're not perfect. We'll never be perfect. But people should be held accountable for their actions. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you. I'll get to your email. And if you want to, Carlos, I'll have you on board tomorrow for an interview if you would like to do that. I mean, I don't have to work tomorrow, thankfully, but we'll schedule that out because I would really love to talk to you about this. And I'm pretty sure J-Man would love to join in on the discussion too.
Yeah, I'm willing to join in.
Yeah. But, I mean, I would love to talk to you about this. And just, we can make it interesting. I mean, you're an expert at arcade cabinets, how they render and everything. I'm not. I'm just a bumbling idiot that just makes videos sometimes and does art. But I just felt like this was a fascinating thing to venture into, to look into stuff like this, to expand my knowledge on, subject matters like this.
Go the rabbit hole.
It's not going to be a regular thing, though, because, quite frankly, I'm not a drama channel at all. I'm a guy with an opinion at the end of the day. That's it. I'm not looking to make money off of this. I'm not looking to gain viewership from it at all. I just want to have a discussion. I want to just talk to people and just try to understand and listen and, engage in conversations. Because it's fun. It's really fun. But, I appreciate you all stopping by, checking out the stream. Just be sure to subscribe to this channel. J-Man, go ahead. Plug yourself.
Okay, you can follow me on Twitter at JWinTheDualBlad without the E, Twitter City. And idiocy knows no bounds. Then you can catch me here on YouTube. And you can also watch me on twitch.tv. Look for J-Man the Dual Blade. I'm thinking about maybe tomorrow doing a live reading of the visual novel of Higurashi.
That sounds fun. But tomorrow night, if possible, I might be able to get Carlos on the stream tomorrow if he's up for that. Because, I mean, I still want to talk more about this Billy stuff because it's fascinating to me now. It's very intriguing to know about this. And yes, I will play the clip one more time. Jeez, people are messaging. Not in the chat. It's someone messaged me on Discord. Play the clip one more time.
Billy.
Oh, Billy. Oh. this has just been fun. Roasting Billy and just having fun. Talking about this stuff. You can, of course, follow me on Twitter at Canvas Pirates. And also subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and you have a good night.